Hello and welcome, my little internet denizens, to the reading room. And today we are doing another debate dissection. Are we ready to cut up this slab of meat, Ember? Are we ready to delve into the horror that is Dinosaur Adventureland? Are you
Oh,
ready?
it should be a trip.
I mean, you've already done something pretty weird today. It should be a trip, yeah, and it's an interesting one. I've seen it. It's something I wanted to share with people. Not because I mean, Kent's always a lolcow. Let's face it, he's just ridiculous, and I find him hilarious. But it's more Grayson, and I don't know if you've noticed, Grayson has been on fire lately. I sort of watching debates and stuff. He is actually at the moment one of my favorite people to watch because he really is doing a fantastic job. I cannot stress that enough. But before we get started, how are you? How are you feeling?
Oh, so I have mixed feelings.
Okay.
There've been some pretty big changes today, and I'm kind of
Yeah,
like
well, I
mildly
wasn't
panicked
gonna.
about them.
I wasn't gonna. No, don't panic. Look, you're absolutely should be comfortable here of all places. Everyone's accepted for who they are, and if you want to engage with people, that's fine. It's fine. So yeah, no, you look wonderful. I really have to stress that. I was trying not to draw attention to it, but now that you've pointed it out, I think
It's
we're over that hurdle, and
yeah, I can't not think about it, you know?
yeah, no, I get you. And I was sharing with Ember before I shaved my head. Once I shaved my head, I thought I looked like it was a shock, and I looked dreadful, and I was afraid to go out. A lot of the things we think, like, we catastrophize a lot, or at least I do. About these kind of stuff. We think that it's going to be horrible, and people are going to be laughing at us and stuff. And I guess that's, for me, a lot of that is trauma and things like that. But it's not. It's not a real. It's not reality. It's not sort of, when you think about it rationally. That's not how people. You know, people come across to you. A lot of people were supportive of me with a shaved head. A lot of people like, wow. And as I said, I think I look better with a shaved head than not. But um, I hope you're well. And you just got out of a debate as well, which is interesting, where you
Yes.
were defending Christendom, which I caught the very tail end of, but none of the meat of the debate. But I did vote for you anyway. So sorry, BS Lewis. Sorry, mate. I voted against you and didn't even see the debate, but I I did own up to being incredibly biased in the chat. I owned that. So poor
That's yeah,
BS.
that's fair.
Mm. BS lost it due to nepotism. It's I don't know what to say. I'm sorry,
I
BS.
I I cheated in every way that was possible. I mean,
Nice.
I went outside the scriptures to make my argument, which completely threw BS off because he'd prepared for a scripture battle, and I just dodged the whole thing. And
And it
I
was
in
was Jesus the Messiah. That was the topic. Just to let everybody know. So
Yes, was Jesus the
yeah.
Messiah? And then I unfairly influenced the audience by simply being prettier, you know.
Right, exactly. I don't think BS appeared on camera at all, so it just goes to show people empathize more with somebody they can see. That's just debate tactics. That's not unfair at all. But yeah, being prettier, how dare you? How dare you? Well,
Right.
I think so. Yeah, and I wanted to ask how you were going. We've been doing this. We recently went to Maya's thing, and I see Maya in chat. So congratulations again, Maya. Her monetization stream. Um, yeah, so that was absolutely deserved and really good. I want to, and I'm gonna actually, I should have been prepared. What, Mark Reed, not prepared? Whoever thought of that? That's terrible. I'm gonna get
Mark it on the
Grayson's.
calendars.
Yeah, I'm gonna get Grayson's channel, and I really like. He is another person. Oh, he's up to 1.24K.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that jumped quickly. Where
Mm-hmm.
was his celebration? How dare you? I'm gonna
He's
rake
still
over the coals.
planning his 1K.
He's
It's
still planning
grown
his
that
1K.
fast,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so I think that he's doing amazing job, and I wanna plug him, but I'll bring up the thing. And I'm a bit tired today. I was gonna get up early to watch the debate, and I just, to be honest, I just didn't. I went back to sleep. So I'm so sorry, but you know, I I will watch it, but
Hey,
uh,
you've got to get your rest.
yeah, yeah. So this is Grayson at where's my one that I prefer? I prefer that one. Yeah, so this is Grayson at DAL. Um, I cut out the introduction. A lot of it was Kent trying to say, "Hey, atheists say you shouldn't come here." But it's not a cult, right, Grayson? And nudging him a lot, kind of thing. And he's like, "I don't know." And he's like, people, would you recommend atheists come and bring their families, kind of thing? It's like, what? I Atheists don't have families. We're just evil ne'er do wells that were spawned out of hell. I think we don't have families, but a lot of it was that. So I skipped past that. But yeah, it gave me North Korea vibes. Like, no, we're absolutely doing well over here. Thank you. But
Oh, you'll definitely get North Korea vibes when you watch the other video too. It's
I will.
oh
Well,
yes.
somebody, I think I was watching, and I'd like to get on Mark Stoney because he used to live there, kind of thing, and maybe send some feelers out to try and get somebody on proofread. Um, Mark Stoney would be fantastic. I find I get along really well with him, actually. It might be a bit confusing having two Marks, but I'd bite the bullet on that one. And I heard that people aren't allowed to drink even outside of the compound, and that made my eyebrows raise, because like, I get you want to have a what they call a dry sort of compound, or a dry premises, kind of thing. I get that. That's totally understandable. But sort of controlling people's behavior outside of the property is very, very strange. Sort of like, oh, you can't go down to the town and have a drink at the bar, kind of thing. You're not allowed to do that. It's weird. And I want to know if that's true. But this is the stuff about DAL. But anyway, I'll get it started, and do feel free to interrupt with any Kent witticisms that you have, or some Grayson
Buy
witticisms
my
that you have.
DVDs.
Yeah.
Give my audience, Joe says we got a whole bunch of people on all the different platforms watching us, like thousands and thousands. What is your worldview? How did the world?
I feel like he's inflating that a bit. Thousands, hundreds of thousands. Yeah, I don't think it's thousands.
Record
Watching.
numbers.
Yeah, it's probably just I mean, I'll bet that he got maybe a few hundred or something between all of the platforms, kind of thing. But thousands, I sincerely doubt it. That very few channels get thousands of viewers at a time. But
get here? We talked about his son going to Chinese restaurant. What's your worldview with atheism? How did we get here? Why are we here? And all that stuff.
there he is, the boy, Grayson. What a guy! What a guy! So yeah, and look, full props to him for walking into DAL like the lion's den, kind of thing. Like, full props. Like, I think I would be worried if ever I was going there. I would certainly be worried. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess atheism is not really a worldview. It's just a lack of a belief in God. But generally, I would be a naturalist, a physicalist. I accept the scientific consensus on things like the Big Bang, the development of the solar system, evolution. And so that explains, how humans evolved from more basal primate ancestors to where we got today. And the general stroke of history for the human species over, 300,000 some odd years, the development of civilizations, et cetera, modern archaeology, biology, physics. I pretty much accept the scientific consensus on these.
Okay, so like, I get, like, Grayson's, his thing is science, like pure science, and love him. It's not really. Naturalism is definitely a worldview. Like, I get you. He's spot on the money there. Science isn't really a worldview. But there are worldviews like secular humanism, which says that science is the way we evaluate the world. So I think his answer of naturalism is really good here. I think that it's kind of Kent's looking to pin him down. Like nobody uses really worldview except for Christians and other theists kind of thing, because nobody else is evaluating their world with one thing, right? So there's nobody else in the world that's going, oh well, I evaluate everything through Darwin's evolution. That's the only thing I look at. We have different views for different things. You may look at morality through a certain lens. You may look at family through a certain lens. Not everything boils down to one thing, but for the creationists, it does. It boils down to Bible. So they say, my worldview is Bible. I look at the world through the lens of this one thing. But we don't have that. Like, that's the thing that they don't understand. So they want us to pin down the worldview to just one thing, which, naturalism and science, fair answer. I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah. It's Kent's attempt to set up a false dichotomy so that he can knock down the other thing and prove himself right, because he can't demonstrate his own beliefs. All he can do is try to knock down everyone else's.
Yeah, and that's why he'll never defend his own beliefs. So he never debates creationism ever. He will not touch that with a 10-foot barge pole. And his excuse is, well, they're trying to put evolution in schools, so that's what we should be debating. But it's like, well, no, that should be in schools. It's scientific. But yeah. Did you see the cuts that's standing for truth? No, I haven't seen the cuts, Beamsy. I haven't. I presume it's pretty biased, and Donnie cuts these things up to be really, really, biased
Dishonest.
and stuff. Yeah, basically, it goes with the territory. It really doesn't worry me. He's just doing it for his audience,
Okay. We talked a little bit at length today about the Big Bang Theory. Tell us what exploded, where was it, where did it come from, and what happened before that?
Sure. Okay. So we'll start with an easy question then, the origin of the entire universe.
Sure.
So first of all, the Big Bang was not an explosion. An explosion is a very well-defined phenomenon that.
Yeah, so keep note of this. He says it's not an explosion, right? So this is something Kent accepts at the start of the debate. Like, it's not an explosion, it's a rapid expansion. So he's being told already during this debate.
The Big Bang does not fit into. The Big Bang was simply the expansion of space and time from a point that was much smaller and denser with energy. So our modern physics and math can only trace that back up to a certain point in which we don't have the proper math or the physics to describe those very first earliest moments. So all we really have is the evidence, which is very strong, that the universe was once in a hotter, denser, smaller state.
Okay, what is the evidence that the universe was in a hotter, smaller? Just the redshift, the expansion?
Redshift and expansion is one of those lines of evidence, but the one that I would actually consider to be the strongest would be the cosmic microwave background, which.
And I just want to point out he's wearing a LIGO jacket, which is just awesome. Just want to point that out.
Oh yeah,
is a microwave.
Yeah, and sort of, so you're starting to see, and this is the tactic that I really want to point out. Kent's basically, he'll say something that he puts a red herring to chase. He puts out a dummy to chase. So the dummy is getting fixated on the explosion part. And yeah. So he basically tries to make people mad about something he says, like evolution is a science, and then he makes a point. And the idea is you're supposed to make the person mad and chase the bait, chase the evolution isn't a science kind of thing, and ignore the absolute nonsense that he said afterwards. And a lot of people do fall for it, myself included. I've fell for it before, where I've sort of gotten to an argument over the semantics and not over the substance. But that's what he's trying to set up. He doesn't want to actually have a discussion about the meat of the argument. He wants to make these really, really silly remarks that, will deflect the entire thing. It's very manipulative. But a lot of people, say he is manipulative.
Yeah, and I enjoy how Grayson opened. Both times he opened his mouth, he began with actually and corrected Kent. And I think this is one of the things that sets this debate apart, as Phantom X just pointed out in the chat. this is a different debate than we've seen with Kent, because Kent can't have the moderator mute Grayson.
Right, right. And it's kind of yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of, it's not even, it's kind of a weird debate, because it's not really a debate so much as just a discussion. And it's kind of odd, because it's like Grayson's being interviewed, kind of thing, and he's just educating somebody. Like I said to you before the stream, it's like a young guy involved in science educating a boomer on what what they've discovered or something. Like, it really is amazing.
Signal that we can detect in the sky, and it's very homogeneous to about 1 part in 10,000, 100,000. So it's very homogeneous in every direction that we look, and there's no other physical explanation or mechanism to how that could be, other than that this light originated back when the universe transitioned from purely plasma to molecular clouds of hydrogen, helium, and a little bit of lithium. So that's the only physical mechanism that we know of that could possibly explain the cosmic microwave background.
Okay, so as you mentioned, we don't have the physics or math to know.
Positive microwave background radiation. It's very, very compelling evidence, because it showed that at one point that there was just a plasma that we just see the remnants of. And homogeneity just means it's very, very, like, it's very, very consistent everywhere, basically. There's no like one dense patch over here and another, lighter patch. No, it's all very consistent and has very, very few variations, kind of thing.
Well,
so
that's true, but I think it overshadows the most significant thing about the CMB is that every other signal, and I mean every other signal, has a source. We can say, oh, this light is coming from that direction, or oh, these radio waves are coming from over there. The CMB is everywhere. It's the only omnidirectional signal we've ever discovered, and there is no other explanation for it.
Yeah, that's true. And it's sort of so everywhere. And that was part of the problem when they were trying to find it, I believe. They kept pointing the radar dish in every single direction, radar dish, the sort of radar telescope in every single direction, and it picked up this signal, kind of thing, from anywhere they pointed it at. It's coming from everywhere.
Before that, or exactly all the details. So until we do, should it be taught as science in class, or should it be excluded from science class? And should we teach all religions? Because other people believe differently,
Well, obviously, I would take umbrage to you calling it a religion.
Okay,
I would say
you believe it happened.
Well, I accept that that's what the evidence supports.
Okay.
So there is evidence of that to support at least up to.
Yeah, that's what you believe. He's kind of trying to line up. Hey, I believe there's a God. You believe there's background radiation. Hey Jay, good to see you. So he's trying to make this sort of tu quo quo. Is that tu? I mean, it's not even really a tu quo quo.
It kind of is. He's saying you believe things too, so we're on the same plane.
Yeah, but I mean, we don't just believe it like you believe in a God. We don't just believe it because that's a religious belief. That's what he's trying to reduce it to. He's trying to say, I have a religious belief, you have a religious belief, they're both equal, because he knows he's not going to win on evidence and reasoning, kind of thing. He knows he's not going to win there. So he's trying to reduce it to, hey, it's all just religions. Everything's just religions. We have our religion, you have your religion, they're exactly the same. No, they're not exactly the same. It's because we have an abundance of evidence for this that's been tested, whereas no one's managed to test any God that you've come up with, or anybody's come up with. So yeah, it's yeah.
But when he does that, he reveals his weakness, because he's saying we have to drag science down to the level of my religion, because he implicitly admits that his religion does not have a strong foundation for truth.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Yes, and that's okay. I mean, when it comes to beliefs, you can believe anything for any reason, really. Something I really want to think about and want to get into is, where is the level that beliefs become dangerous? You know, where is the level that we say, hey, this belief is like if I believe that poisoning cis white men is going to be good for society, that's a dangerous belief. You know, we can say, hey, that belief is really dangerous, right? At what point do these beliefs become unacceptable for society, and how do we designate that is a really good question. But I'm not going to sidetrack into that. I just, his because I mean, I do say, hey, you can believe whatever you want, but having said that, there's some beliefs that are really dangerous, really dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
So but we're not just basing this belief on I read it and sort of we get this a lot that, hey, you just read a science textbook. No, that isn't the same thing as reading a Bible. It's not the science textbook that we're believing. It's the process of them doing experimentation and other people sort of peer reviewing, monitoring it, redoing the experimentation and saying, yes, that is true. It's not just the book. Oh, hello, everybody. Hello, Hannah.
Yeah, bunch of new folks dropping in. Good to see.
Yeah, hey, welcome. Yeah.
The cosmic microwave background. And, even before that, there are properties of the cosmic microwave background. I don't know how in-depth we want to get here, but there's something called a power spectra, where it's an exact pattern. It's a certain attribute for the distribution of this temperature fluctuations. And it was predicted.
Yeah, that's the CMB map that you see, the thermal map, basically. It's kind of, I mean, I want to say it's a famous picture. I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with it. I'll just get it. This is the spectra kind of thing. So this is the CMB as seen from Earth, essentially. It's the temperature fluctuations in it kind of thing.
Yeah, that's from the Wilkinson microwave anisotropy probe.
I was going to ask how you knew that. I was going to ask how the hell you knew that, and I can see it down the bottom.
I can't. Our heads are in the way.
Really? Wow, that is wow. I did not know that.
This is my field.
Yeah, you're right. That's actually, hang on a sec. I want to show people how bloody smart Ember is here. 9-year Wilkinson microwave and help me.
Yeah, you can tell the difference between WMAP and Planck and the Kobe probe because it's a resolution difference.
Right. Yeah, but that's sort of what he's referring to, right? The fluctuations in temperature that we see in this map.
Mm-hmm. And it's important to note that those fluctuations represent a tiny fraction of a degree. It's our
it's
early attempts to measure it just showed an even temperature, which that was in keeping with Gamow's predictions. But if the universe were totally homogeneous, whence comest all these clumps of matter we call galaxies then?
Right. That if it was completely evenly spaced, then there would be no differentiation for gravity to take effect and pull everything together. Is that what you're saying? That it would just be sort of there shouldn't be a completely even distribution of heat.
Right. It couldn't be completely even. One big clump and you're back to a singularity. All the matter's in one place.
Right.
But if it's completely spread out, it'd just be an expanding cloud of hydrogen. No stars would ever form, no galaxies, anything like that.
Yep.
To extreme accuracy, using just 5 or 6 free variables, using the math that has, a Big Bang 13.7 billion years ago, they were able to precisely predict what that power spectrum of the cosmic microwave background should look like back in the 70s. And we were not able to measure it adequately until the 90s and early 2000s, when it confirmed exactly what was predicted. So that's the gold standard of scientific evidence: is testable, repeatable, verifiable, falsifiable predictions.
Yeah, I kind of I hate that saying, gold standard of science. I know it's true, but creationists use it all the time to say, hey, we've never observed this or we've never observed that. It's just it kind of annoys me now. I think I've heard Donnie use it way too much, like standing for truth, use it too often, and now it just annoys me, which is a shame. I want to come up with something different than gold standard to use. Like, it is the pinnacle of scientific confirmation. Maybe I just, it annoys me now. But it's the same with every single term that creationists have hijacked, like microevolution. It just annoys you now, even though it is a thing in evolution. It's just over a very, very short scale. It just, when they use it incorrectly, it becomes annoying. Like, just.
Is it an option at all in your mind that maybe what they're saying is, and God said, let there be light? Could this be the voice of God doing this? Instead of a big bang, it would be the voice of God.
So I don't know what mechanism that would fall under. So to me, that sounds like a supernatural miracle. And in science is methodologically naturalistic. So all of our hypotheses and theories in science are naturalistic theories. Right. So I don't know what natural mechanism would explain God speaking this into existence. But if that is the case and God created it all with the Big Bang, then that just sounds like more of a mainstream Christian view that I don't have as much of an issue with, because it follows the science. It's not pseudoscientific.
Okay, if there was this rapid.
Yeah, so Grayson's being really honest here, and I do love what he's doing. He's basically saying, hey, we don't know what started the Big Bang. It could be a god. Like, it could be. You'd have to explain the mechanisms and things, but hey, sure. And I love that he is being really, really honest and upfront and saying, but there's no reason to think that a god did this. There's no, that sort of, it comes into God of the gaps. But if you say, hey, I believe a god started evolutionary, or the evolution of stellar evolution or whatever, or started the universe or whatever, fine. I don't know how we test that. It seems to be an untestable hypothesis, but go for it.
I tend to agree. Like, I don't have a problem with someone who wants to say, God of the gaps, whatever it is we don't understand, God did it. I mean, fine, believe that if you want to, as long as you're willing to accept when we do find a real answer, that the made-up answer has to get put in the closet. It's when people say, God did it, therefore we have to kill off an entire group of people because God said so. Like, no, those don't connect. That's a problem.
Or when you're sort of saying, hey, the universe is 6,000 years old and the Earth is 6,000 years old, like things that conflict with what science tells us about the age of the Earth, or the composition of the Earth, or the physical attributes, the natural things around us. At that point, the Bible is not the best way to examine the properties of the natural universe. It is science at that point. But unfortunately, people like Kent, they start with the Bible is inerrant and correct in every way first, and then the science has to conform to that belief, which is a really weird way of looking at things. I don't understand somebody saying, hey, I love science, but it takes a back seat to the Bible kind of thing. It's very strange.
Expansion of all this particles being formed and everything from the plasma or whatever. Every microsecond you wait, they're getting further apart at radio directions. How do you get them back together to make planets and stars? I mean, they're all getting further apart. Shouldn't it be?
I'm sorry, but that's a really stupid question. I guess it's not it's a stupid question for A, someone his age, B, someone that says that they love science, and C, somebody that's been debating this topic for decades to ask.
It's a dishonest question because it's meant to mislead his audience.
Yeah, like it's not like he's sort of trying to say, hey, like he's trying to get it back to it's an explosion where everything is pushed away from one another. Whereas in the Big Bang cosmology, it's space expanding. It's not the particles or the matter being pushed apart. It's the space expanding around it. So this plasma sort of congealed into your base hydrogen, but he's trying to get it back to an explosion. Like everything's being, like with an explosion, you have a solidly packed matter, and then a force of some sort pushes everything apart. That isn't what we're seeing here. This is space expanding and everything going with it, kind of thing. So he's kind of being really disingenuous here, and it's a stupid question. Gravity's perfectly reasonable answer to this.
One homogeneous dust cloud out there? Well,
right, and it wasn't dust. This is the thing. Like, he's like, oh, shouldn't it be a moderate dust? At the point where the plasma that Grayson's talking about became particles, it's hydrogen and then, you know, helium as it fuses, kind of thing. Like, we're not talking about dust, which is a mineral, right? So you're talking, dust is usually what, silica and other elements further down the periodic table. We're talking about like elementary particles, like you know, hydrogen, helium, you know, lithium, a bit of lithium, you know. So we're not talking about dust as such. So it's more into gas, right? Unless I've got that mistaken.
Yeah, the intergalactic medium, the interstellar medium. It's mostly hydrogen.
Right.
There's this thing called gravity, Kent.
Where'd that come from?
Where did gravity come from?
Yeah, who made gravity?
It's a
Oh, is that a loaded question? That's one of the most loaded questions I've heard in quite some time.
At least
who
he didn't
made
say
gravity?
I was going to say, who made gravity? Oh, look
Who
at
made
this.
gravity? Yeah, so what a loaded question. Yeah, really dishonest again. He's trying to get agency into the question. Oh, and left-handed Jedi gifted 5. You know what? I love that you've got emberships, readerships. I could say readerships.
Yeah.
I don't. There you go. There you go. 5 readerships. So congratulations, probing time. Congratulations, Hannah. Lots of love, Hannah. You deserve it. Big thing, Flying Wayne. Tyler West. Congratulations, Tyler. Sam. Congratulations, Sam. There you go. Winner. Chicken dinner. Dust can be made of any element. What came of the Big Bang was not even elements. It was only energy, not matter. Dust equals matter. Big Bang equals pure energy. Yeah, okay. No, I get you. It's just the way that he wants to categorize it is he wants to keep saying, hey, it was an explosion of you know, minerals, kind of thing. Like when you're talking about dust that's come off of some sort of, you know, a rock or something. And this is a common thing with Kent. His language is always loaded towards what he wants it to be, rather than it being an open question. And yeah, it's very dishonest in my mind. It's very, very dishonest, because he's not listening to Grayson to find out what it is. He wants to get back to an explosion, and we'll see that later on.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And, you know, to do a slight tangent, this is a common tactic with creationists, like Eric Hovind, his son, who stole his ministry, and Matt Powell have both made the argument that water doesn't compress, so how could water have come from the Big Bang? Well, obviously there wasn't any water there, because you need oxygen to make water.
Right.
And you don't get oxygen until at least the first generation of stars has burned some hydrogen and done the nucleosynthesis to make the oxygen with. So there was no oxygen at the Big Bang, and there was no water at the Big Bang.
Right. And but the thing is, I think they're sort of, because they believe that the waters of the deep or whatever were at the start of, because Genesis says, you know, the it was still over the waters, kind of thing. So they may actually have in their head that there was water before the universe, kind of thing, which is really, really odd. But even if that's the case, yeah, water doesn't compress, but the particles that make up water, if you remove, you know, if you sort of use electrolysis to separate the water into hydrogen and oxygen, sure, they can compress. And Grayson, I'm not sure if it is in this debate, it might have been in another debate. I've been watching a lot of Grayson, okay? I'm just a big Grayson frigging fan at the moment. He sort of says, well, yeah, you can compress particles and they become a plasma, you know, which is exactly what the Big Bang, you know, sort of started out as, just plasma. So there's no problem with that. Oh yeah, keep the suggestions coming. Reads reviewers. Okay.
The Marksman.
Okay. The Marksman. Yeah, I like that one. That's great. All right, I'm gonna write that down somewhere where I'll certainly forget it later. But I love it. And Anathema, good to see you, my brother in Christ. Woo.
Phenomenon in the universe. I don't know where it came from, but we observe it happening. We know it's a real phenomenon.
I believe in gravity. I use it all the time. I'm using it right now.
There you go.
On a chair. So gravity, as they get further apart, you probably know the inverse square law. The gravitational attraction becomes weaker and weaker. That's why I wonder, why isn't it just one big dust cloud? How did anything get together? Because every second you wait, they get further apart.
Yeah.
Why did they suddenly turn around and go back together?
It's because forces. So
That's like saying, hey, I threw a ball into the air. Why did it come back to the ground? Why did it turn around and come back to the ground?
How did the ball know?
Yeah, that's not what happened. It's just under the effects of gravitational force. Like if there was more matter on the other side of it, it wouldn't turn around. But he's got in his head that things are being exploded. They're being pushed away kind of thing. And that isn't what's happening. So he's not really, I mean, it's I don't know if he's not listening or he's just not understanding or he just refuses to understand or he understands and maybe he just wants to do this sort of song and dance. But I love Mark My Words. Like the chat's just on fire. Stop it. I'm trying to do something here. I'm joking. Chat all
damn
you
it,
want.
you clever and creative people.
Yeah, damn it, you readers, you dirty readers. So you know, he's thinking, hey, all of this is like an explosion. All the particles are being pushed away by the force of the explosion. That's not what's happening. It's space expanding and everything gets further away because the space in between that expands. But if there is gravitational attraction, it will start to move in. It's not actually moving away from one another, right? It's not actually moving. It is space that's expanding and the particles in it are just getting further away because there is more space in between. That's a very layman kind of very simplistic explanation, but that's what's happening. It's not that they're moving.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that he's deliberately or not deliberately misunderstanding. I mean, the fact he throws out the inverse square law implies that he does understand more than he lets on, but yeah, there's first of all, there's the clumpiness in the CMB that shows not all matter was equally distant from other matter at the moment of last scattering, at least. And so that it's not that things are continuously moving further away from each other. Stuff was already clumpy at that point. And once you have gravity, it's going to continue to attract more other matter. The other thing is this idea that if gravity is getting weaker slower than space is expanding, then how could gravity ever pull one massive body to another? I don't think Kent will ever get into that level of detail, but it's what he's trying to invoke in his viewers' minds. And we have a thought experiment to explain that, the ant on the infinite rubber band. As long as you keep moving towards your target, and once under influence of gravity, you've accelerated, even if the gravity is removed, you're no longer continuing to accelerate, but you're still going to keep that inertia. Yeah. As long as you keep moving, you will eventually cross that distance.
And I've seen sort of it, the expansion of space like being done really well on a rubber band or a balloon, where you have 2 points and you stretch the rubber band basically, and the 2 points, they're getting further away from each other, but the rubber band isn't moving at all. Like it's just staying exactly still. And like on the rubber band, the dots, they've been placed with a marker. They're not moving at all. It's just the rubber band that's expanding. Like they're not moving on the rubber band. They're not moving in space, but they are getting further away because the rubber band itself or the balloon is expanding, which is really, really good way to demonstrate it. I think they do that in physics classes and stuff to sort of demonstrate how compared to the background space, the things aren't moving, but they are getting further away because space is getting bigger. So that would sort of, so he's kind of like, well, how does it fight against the the force that has pushed all of these particles away from one another. That isn't happening, is the answer. Like, you've completely malformed what's happening because you don't understand Big Bang.
As gravity, keep them in a bound state. So even if there's a metric expansion of this space in between all the atoms in my hand right now, the atoms are being held together by forces. In that case, it would be the chemical bonds and the electromagnetic forces holding all those atoms together. So those atoms, even though the space between them, you could be having a metric expansion, they're continually going to be held together by that force. So gravity, in the instance of more of a cosmological scale, would be what's pulling together material into stars, planets, galaxies, etc.
So if we release a dust,
And with the dust.
I don't know. Left-hand Jedi, do you think there's such a thing as proto-black holes? I don't know. I think there is. I don't think we know enough about black holes to really know for sure. But I think there probably is.
Well,
you know,
I guess it's what would that even be, right? Like, because we've got neutron stars, we've got pulsars.
Right.
A black hole is just where a collapsing stellar core reaches that point where it creates an event horizon where the gravitational slope is so intense light can't escape. A proto-black hole, I guess, would be something that's in the process of that collapse where we can, like,
yeah,
for lack of a better term, watch the event horizon form.
Well, I'd presume it would be sort of sort of before it turns into a singularity. That light would be incredibly distorted by that gravitational pull, but it will still escape. So you'd get some crazy stuff happening. I honestly don't know. I'm not a physicist, so I do know a weasel that could possibly answer that question, and it's a really good question. So I think I got to jot that one down as well. I honestly don't know. I would imagine there is. It's a black hole that started around the Big Bang. Well, I mean, I don't think that you know, anything.
Okay, that's a primordial black hole. Like, so you know, you've got your moment where the singularity, for lack of a better term, it probably wasn't a singularity as we understand things right now, but whatever. When the initial conditions of the universe first began to expand, there could conceivably have been places where there was so much matter in such a dense space that they just immediately collapsed into black holes. So we could have had black holes before we had stars, but that's a different thing entirely.
And we got a $2 super chat, $2 from Canada. Yeah, Hooligan, just because I love this show, and we love you, mate. That's Justin. Justin, hope you're doing well. Yeah, awesome guy. I have to also does Matters Now, new channel Who Dis, and they're doing some amazing stuff over there. So yeah, get to Matters Now if you do want to see some it's mostly, I think it sort of came off the back of modern day debate, but more geared towards just people coming on and discussing things. Really good place. And I know that I Killed Earl is doing some amazing work on that channel as well. And I Killed Earl is one of the channel darlings over here. So yeah, Matters Now. Go and check it out if you do like, well, current matters and things that are being discussed. Sort of evolution, social issues, flat Earth, just all kinds of stuff. Just whatever debates are happening. So I'm all about it. I don't know if they're going to be doing debates. I don't think they've decided, but they're doing interesting stuff and game shows and things like that. Just yeah, it's a really good place for community. We've kind of tangent, haven't we? I'm blaming chat for this one. I'm blaming chat. I think today I'm just blaming chat for everything. Quite frankly, I'm really sorry, chat. You're going to be my you know, scapegoat at the moment.
They're pretty sus.
Cloud now, like all the factories in the world are doing, do they get together and form solid objects and fall down? Does all the smoke coming out of the factory become a lump and fall down?
Well, they are under the influence of the Earth's gravity, so they're not going to be escaping out into space. They're going to be kept within the Earth's system.
Attracted to each other. It's a whole lot of dust coming up. What they make? Why does it make a cloud? Why not clumps? You know,
right. Well, you cited the inverse square law before. You would know that in the numerator of the universal law of gravitation is mass. So something that is, as light as.
Yeah. So there's not a lot of mass to this dust that you're talking about. And another super chat, because you make my life difficult, but we love ya hooligan. Another $2 from Canada. Just paying the ad bill now. Thanks for the plug. Actually, now that I mentioned Canada, it must be cold as over there. Really, I can't imagine how cold it is. Keep some of that for your heating, mate. I swear it's yeah. So yeah. So if it's basically like, why does accretion work? Why does gravity cause things to sort of act in the way that it does? It's like, well, that's what gravity does, Ken. The mass isn't high enough to make these clumps that you're talking about. Like, you're wanting it to do something that it doesn't have the mass to do. That's later it becomes clumps. Those clumps, supernova, create the heavy, they create stars. Stars collapse, supernova, then it repeats, kind of thing. I can't remember what generation star the sun is, but it wasn't formed in the Big Bang. Like, that's not what
our
happened.
star is a population 1 star because we named it, so our star is population 1. The parent star is population 2, and the first generation of stars is population 3.
Oh, okay.
Because we don't like to name things in a way that makes sense.
That makes no sense to me. That makes absolutely no sense. Yeah.
Just the amount of mass in gas that a factory emits is not going to congeal into an entity with its own gravitational field.
But the initial Big Bang, it did work. All these particles, if you want to call them particles, flew out and then got back.
If you want to call them particles, well, yeah, I mean, there were particles.
It's better than dust.
Yeah, that's true. I shouldn't complain, should I? If you want to call them particles instead of dust, yeah, I would prefer that. I mean, it would be more accurate.
Together to make stars and planets, and all rotating, and pretty cool orbits and stuff. That'll happen by gravity.
Well, gravity is certainly one factor. There's also, like, if you're talking about explanations of planetary motions and spins, then you have their past histories. So you can have collisions that can knock planets off of their spin axis or cause them to spin in opposite ways. And the past collisional history of these bodies come into play. But I would just describing the Big Bang as all these particles just flying out from some centralized point is not really the picture that is the consensus. I mean, the Big Bang did not just happen at one point in space. The entire universe was on a much smaller spatial scale and was much denser. So the Big Bang was happening at every point in space. Every point in space was at one point in time a plasma of quarks and gluons, etc. So this was happening at every point. There's no central point, no center. Every point was experiencing this same metric expansion.
Yeah, so this is really important, and it's sort of what the linear thinking is. It's got to have expanded from a central point outwards. Like, when they demonstrate with a balloon, you're like, well, the balloon's got a central point. It'll be outwards around that central point of that balloon. But that's not how space works. It's kind of the way that it's described is really weird. Like, there's no real boundary to space, but it curves in on itself in such a way that if you travel in a straight line, you get back to where you started. And it just sort of expands, kind of thing, but everywhere. It expands everywhere. There's no real center as far as I know. It's really weird.
Yeah, we haven't nailed that down for sure yet.
Correct. Yeah.
But it's how do you phrase it in philosophy terms? It's arguing against a consequent or proof by contradiction, something like that. If there were a central point, the universe would have collapsed into it. It would be unavoidable. So there cannot be a central point.
Yeah. Oh, and I killed our $10 super chat for the channel shout out and for Ember's next eyeshadow palette. Love you both. Much love back, Earl.
Thanks, I do need to work on
Killer.
eyeshadow. That's still on my list.
Yeah. No, you look fantastic. Don't even worry about it. Look, I'm just making it look better by being here, admittedly, because I'm just so basic. But that's okay. I will take that. I will bear that cross. See what I did there? I'm now Jesus.
You've done more for the world than Jesus has, anyway.
Right. That's funny because Kent sort of. I saw something on Big Bad Mama's channel where Kent let slip that he said, even prophets like me, he thinks he's a prophet. He thinks he's a, and I got this sense talking to him in the last time I was with him. He's like, oh, I've made my thing, and even when I'm gone, you can't refute it and stuff. And it's like, you think that you're an authority of some sort on astronomy and evolution and science. You think that you're an authority on this, and I don't think I'm an authority on it. I'm just repeating what the actual experts say, the people that know what they're doing, unlike me. But he thinks that he is some sort of genius when it comes to this stuff, and that's it's kind of no.
And where did space come from for this to expand into?
Right. So we do not have good answers for that at the moment. I mean, there are literally ideas in physics that on the breaking forefront of physics right now, asking that very question about could space and time be emergent from some more fundamental physics? So the question you asked is very profound, and it's, theoretical physicists are working on that question even as we speak. So I don't have an answer for you, and neither do the physicists at the moment.
Here is the European Space Agency. They said time, space, and matter all began with the Big Bang. In a fraction of a second, the universe grew from smaller than a single atom to bigger than a galaxy. So you and I and this cup of water were all in that dot, smaller than an atom. That's your position.
And notice that that's from 2014.
Yeah.
Kent is infamous for using outdated information. That's actually surprisingly up to date for him, but our view has shifted a bit since then. We don't think that it was probably the size of an atom. We're not sure exactly what. Possibly the size of a fist. We don't know for sure. But that
was the last one I heard. But it does change, because really what we're saying is we've seen back to, say, Planck, like one Planck epoch, which is a tiny fraction of a time since the presumed beginning. But past there, our physics completely breaks down. Like we cannot.
It's also important to note we haven't seen back that far. We've calculated back that far. We can't see past the CMB. That's the last scattering for a reason. Beyond that, time-wise, it's a solid wall of plasma. Light can't pass through, or anything else, really.
Yeah. So, but and in those calculations, we kind of change the size that we can sort of predict back to, like, how was it when this started? What was the size of it when this started? And there's probably some dissenting opinions in the scientific community about this. But it's kind of just, but the way that he says, oh, you, me, and this cup of water, what he's trying to do is instill in his audience that, hey, this incredulity, this idea that, hey, this cup of water couldn't be that size because this is the size it is, and you are the size you are. Yes, but if you break it into your component atoms, and all atoms, there's an incredible amount of space in between the protons and the electrons. Like, atoms are mostly just nothing. Like, there's nothing in between the electrons and the nucleus of the atom. There's nothing. Like, if those are separated into their component parts, they're almost nothing. Like, they're so close to being nothing, because
it's hard for people to visualize, but I find a good analogy is the space between the Earth and the Moon. Like, the Moon is ridiculously close and very big. I mean, we could imagine it bigger, but whatever. You can take every other planet in the solar system and line them up in a straight line, and they will fit between the Earth and the Moon because there's that much space. It's similar with an atom. There's so much space.
And what I wanted to point out was this fallacy is called the division composition fallacy, right? So what that means in logic is that you're applying the properties of the amalgamation of some smaller things to the smaller things. That's the composition fallacy, right? So, and the division one is you're applying the properties of the smaller things to the big thing as a whole. So, sort of saying, there's nowhere in your brain that can think, kind of thing, right? If you break it down into the atoms can't think. That's the composition division fallacy, because it is not the atoms that think, rather it's an emergent property from all of them put together, kind of thing. It would be like saying, hey, there's nothing about the atoms of a shoe that says you can walk in them, or there's nothing in the atoms of an elephant that could make it, walk around. That is the fallacy. So he's trying to say, hey, this thing, and it's the opposite way round for this one. This thing is too big. It has this property of being this certain size. There's nothing in the atoms that sort of says that it can be smaller. But that's not true, because if you do break it down to the atoms, it definitely can be smaller. Definitely.
Einstein himself got a lot of pushback on this when he published Special Relativity, and he was talking about different frames of reference. There were people, even accomplished people with credentials who were saying, that's absurd. That's like saying if I have a ruler on Earth, it's 12 inches long, and I take the same 12-inch ruler into space, it's now somehow 13 inches long. Even though they're the same size, it doesn't make sense. A lot of it is counterintuitive.
Yes, and that's the thing. People just want to use their intuition to say, hey, it couldn't be this or it couldn't be that. A lot of physics, especially quantum physics, is counterintuitive, right? Let me give you a basic example. It's intuitive to think that on a bicycle, turning to the right will turn you right, and that's not true. Okay, like it's so counterintuitive, but to turn a bicycle, you turn the opposite. You turn the handlebars the opposite way. It's incredibly counterintuitive, and it is 100% true. I'm not even joking. Like, what you do is you turn the handlebars the opposite way to get your weight over there, and then you lean and then straighten the handlebars. That's how you turn on a bicycle. It's so counterintuitive. Veritasum did a thing on it where they locked a bicycle so you couldn't turn a different way. It's a really fascinating experiment. That if you lock a bicycle so you can't turn the opposite way, you won't be able to turn that direction. It's incredible. I'll see if I can find it for you people, because I like sharing this. Most people don't know how bikes work. I'm sorry, I'm a sucker for all of these counterintuitive kind of things. I really am. Yeah, okay. Thanks for those tangent movies. I deserved that 100%.
That one's on you, mate.
I know, right? I can't blame chat for that, can I? Damn it. Damn it. Chat, say something about bicycles. I need someone to blame.
And the whole world, the whole Pacific Ocean, Mount Everest, everything was in that dot. Does that not seem a little far-fetched to you?
No, because when you can condense regular matter like that you or me or whatever are made of, what you get is eventually you're going to compress it so much that you're just going to have the cores of those nuclei, and you're going to continue to compress it, and eventually the protons and neutrons themselves are going to break into a quark-gluon plasma. So you can condense all this material into a very, very small volume of quark-gluon plasma. And when you continue to compress that, you need more of a unified physics to describe how that behaves. Right now, we've been able to produce quark-gluon plasma in particle accelerators. We have, again, this was a tested, verified prediction, hypothesis, and that we have measured it themselves. We've tested its properties. We know it's real. So it's empirically verified that, if you compress everything here, you would get a very, very small volume of quark-gluon plasma, and you could, in theory, continue to compress it. If we had a more powerful particle accelerator, we could probably tell you what that would compress down into.
Yep. And he's right. You can keep compressing it and keep compressing it. All that you need is the force to be able to compress it. And, there was the forces available back then. There's no problem with this. But the question comes, what was it when it was compressed beyond our sort of ability to observe it? We don't know. We just don't know. And if you want to believe that's a god, sure, go for it. Knock yourself out. But we're going to discover more. Sorry?
It's an awfully weird god. Let's see how much we can squish this universe.
I mean, so there's a number of hypotheses about where the universe came from, but I mean, I like Sean Carroll's idea that it's a child universe spawned from a larger one, kind of thing. I don't know why. I think I just like Sean Carroll, to be honest with you. I think I just like the guy, and I lean towards that one. I don't know enough to know that.
That's fair. I'm a fan of the we're stuck in a black hole hypothesis, in part because it has explanatory power as far as the weirdness of the Big Bang, everything appearing in effectively a single point all at the same time, because, you know, in a singularity inside a black hole, assuming that doesn't change in the future, Kerr's been doing some work on that, but time stops effectively. And what do you do with all that matter? It all the mass the black hole consumes over its entire existence is just trying to occupy the same space at the same time. It can't do that, but at the same time, time is stopped. So you end up with something of a paradox situation.
Right.
If the direction of time changes, like moves at a right angle to the existing direction of time using, you know, normal 3D geometry to visualize, then you have an out, and you can dump all that matter into a new time-space direction all at the same time. And it functions like a phase change.
Yeah.
But that's purely hypothetical.
Yeah, as a, you know, that's another hypothesis, and which one is correct, I don't know. It's going to be fun finding out, though. I mean, what will we know 1,000 years from now? It will be incredible, and maybe we'll have an answer. But, you know, I mean, I'm trying to be charitable, but I feel like Kent's warming up for a God of the Gaps argument, you know.
So if a bunch of smart scientists build a really fancy machine to compress the particles,
I don't, you know, you could at least, you know, say a particle accelerator, Kent. You know, like, come on, he just said what it was. But this is what Kent does. All of it is just rhetoric to try and say, oh, you believe that you know, you came from an amoeba, or you believe a fancy machine did this. No, it's a particle accelerator, dude. Like, it's not just a fancy machine. The only reason you can talk on the internet right now is because of a fancy machine, you know, called a modem. I don't, and servers and things, you know, just because you don't understand them doesn't mean it doesn't work. It's such a boomer argument. I'm sorry, I'm getting real harsh on this guy, but it really is. You know, oh, granddad, we can now, you know, detect the inside of people's bodies and see if they're ill. Oh, you just got a fancy machine. Yeah, okay, boomer. All right. Okay, boomer.
Well, yeah, it's part of that whole thing of trying to infantilize science and say it's no better than our religion. Your science is what a toddler would come up with, because toddlers build particle accelerators, you know.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, I'm sure a bunch of toddlers built CERN. That's yeah, absolutely. The Large Hadron Collider, yeah. Robin Webster. Robin is an angel, has been here for a while, and we love Robin. Member for 3 months, trying to read the big picture. Nice. Yeah, I think Sean Carroll tries to be accessible and fails miserably at times. I do grant you that. There's definitely more accessible, but you know, he's not bad. Gifted 1 Mark Reed membership. It's a readership going out to, who got it? John Hudson. Congratulations, John. There you go. Winner. Chicken dinner. Nice. Yeah, sorry, it's probing time. Yeah, I you know what? Not all boomers are boomers. I got to say that. You know, I totally get what you're saying. Look, my mum, even when she was really old, and you know, she loved new technology, loved to know how it worked. It's not everybody. I mean, it really is just a crass generalization to put people in. I get you, probing time. I mostly do it because I know it would probably annoy Kent, to be honest with you.
That's proof that nobody made the universe.
that is empirical evidence that it can, in principle, be compressed. Okay, this is not saying.
Yeah. See that straw man he just tossed out? Oh, because you're saying a fancy machine. Yeah, absolutely. A fancy machine can compress particles. That's proof that no one created the universe. Grayson didn't say anything remotely similar to that. He just said, hey, yes, it can be compressed, but this is the tactics that Kent uses. So you say, hey, this shows we had a common ancestor. So you think you came from a monkey. It's a straw man.
It's a non sequitur of astronomical scale.
Yeah, well, it's not really a non sequitur because it does relate to what he said. But his interpretation of, so if it was a steel man, you would say, okay, so the Large Hadron Collider and the particle accelerators that we can have can produce incredibly compressed matter, showing that in principle there is no problem with the matter being condensed into a almost infinitely small space during the Big Bang. A straw man is, since a fancy machine says that we can compress matter, that means there's no God. That is the worst straw man I've heard for quite some time.
Saying that any agent or any mind was responsible for compressing all this material. The material was compressed because, obviously, when we look around, we can see that space and time are expanding. If you track that back in time, it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So you have the same amount of energy in a much smaller area. So there's the compression.
So that would be an awful lot of energy. All of the stars are producing an awful lot of heat. Our sun produces a lot of heat. Okay. All that energy was also in that quark gluon plasma.
Yes, that's about it. It would be very, very hot.
And who heated it up? What stove was that cooked on?
Who?
Yes, that's what he just said.
Who heated it?
What stove was that cooked on? I mean...
Yeah, there's some very flawed fundamental assumptions there. Like, he's trying to portray this idea that you had to heat up the universe, but that's the initial condition. It's actually, overall, been cooling off since then.
Right. And the loaded question is just incredible, but he's trying to trigger Grayson into chasing these ridiculous things. He's trying to get him upset and flustered, and Grayson just isn't having it. He's not getting flustered and upset. He's dealt with Kent before. This isn't Grayson's first rodeo. He's dealt with Kent before very, very, very well. Recently did a thing to a debate with Nephilim Free, who came from nowhere. I don't know what rock he's been hiding under, but he came out to debate Grayson.
He was on Nibiru with the other Nephilim.
Nibiru. I'm not even sure that's part of the Bible and not Mormonism, to be honest with you, but yeah. Oh, look, I love Robin. I love Grayson using his hands. I think he expresses himself well. It makes him very accessible. You'll notice all great science communicators like Neil deGrasse Tyson uses his hands a lot. Body language is an incredible percentage of communication. Actually, the actual words of communication are surprisingly low. A lot of it is tone and body language and all of this kind of stuff. Like it actually is surprisingly low how much our communication is actually words. But yeah, yeah.
Well, there was no stove. As far as I know, I don't know of anyone who was heating that up.
So you start off with an extremely hot, extremely dense dot, smaller than an atom, like European Space Agency says, and that proved to be everything. Here's Forbes magazine said it was the size of a human being. Of course, they're outdated. It should be really a dot, right? But they all say this. American Museum of Natural History. The Big Bang, 13.8 billion years ago. The universe began as a tiny, dense fireball that exploded. They probably should not have used the word exploded because
I agree.
You need to call them up. American Museum.
Where did he get that from, though?
It was the American Museum of Natural History, and that I haven't seen the webpage. I haven't scrolled through to find exactly where he got that clip, but the graphic kind of makes it plain that this is a tremendous oversimplification intended to communicate to children a general concept.
Did I see Proverbs guy pop up in chat?
You did.
Did somebody block him or something? I don't. Oh, there he is. Oh, I see. No, I've got a link to. I got this off Grayson's channel, so I've got a link to Grayson's. I'm probably not going to link Hovind, but I got it off Grayson's channel. So yeah.
Yeah, and in fact, there's a link to Grayson right in the title of the video, or this
Yep.
video, maybe not that video, I don't know, but this one you're watching right now. If you click on the blue thing in the title, it'll take you to Grayson.
Partner, take it up with him, but he probably would. I would imagine he would, but I didn't get this off Kent's channel. I got it off Grayson's. But yeah, no, don't block Proverbs guy. He's definitely allows me on his channel and stuff. I think that's fair. Sorry, I thought, but he's got, look, Proverbs guy, you've got weird bars in front of your name. That's why I couldn't at you. Mark at least one hand. Look, I got one hand to spare. Wayne, don't mess with me. But yeah, I mean, this is. I'd like to know when this was from, because Kent has a habit of his screenshots were like from back in the 70s and things like that. You know, I would like to know where this, you know, when this came from, I should say. American natural history, and we wanted to say Big Bang, because it probably has been updated. Yeah, so this looks like an old article. Yeah, it certainly doesn't say that anymore. Explore, ology, so a lot of his stuff is really old information. I might see if I can. Yeah, see, it doesn't even. You can't even get to the same place anymore. So I would want him to show this where it is now, because I think this is an old article which has probably been updated.
Okay, yeah, I found it. I just figured, what would Kent do if he were fishing for evidence? And so I Googled Big Bang explosion, and I scrolled down until I found something that said the Big Bang was an explosion. And it's several listings down, but the first thing that came up that matched was from the American Museum of Natural History. And it's well, I'll just share the screen. Give me 1 second here to click all the buttons in the StreamYards. There we go.
It's a children's site.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Kent.
Yeah, it still says scientists believe that everything in the universe began about 13 billion years ago in a giant explosion called the Big Bang.
Yeah.
And underneath there's a stumper question. A factor.
Oh, yeah.
It's like activities for kids. Yeah. It's just fucking fantastic.
Oh no, really, Kent? You went to a child site to get this? Because they're not going to understand what a rapid expansion is. So they're simplifying it in order so children can understand it. And you're taking that as the scientific consensus. That's embarrassing.
Anything, no matter how much fishing you have to do to feed that confirmation bias. Let's ignore all the other listings above it. No, we have to go for the first one that matches what we're trying to misrepresent things as. Yes.
Yeah,
He's
and
both
I mean,
dishonest and lazy. Predictably so.
I've used that he uses science from an Oxford dictionary from 1930 or something along those lines. Like, he really does cherry pick his definitions and his information to try and make it as sort of I mean, it's inaccurate. It's completely inaccurate. This is literally for children. What's the question? Maybe we can get it. Maybe we can pose it to Kent and see if he can answer it. The stumper.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's
What's
what kind of powerful instruments have scientists used to find the evidence that the Big Bang really happened? Was it microscopes, giant magnifying glasses, or satellite telescope?
Yeah.
The second one is scientists believe the universe is still expanding. Fact or fiction? And it
It's
does
fiction.
little...
It's fiction. Yeah,
Yeah.
You want to teach
so
that
if Kent
in
actually
schools.
had gone to this website.
Okay, it's really sad that Kent would fail a children's quiz. It's terrible.
Oh my goodness. It's just
yeah, you're right,
fantastic.
John. That's where he gets his phylogeny tree diagrams from. Yeah, you're right. It's embarrassing.
8 billion years ago, the universe began as a tiny, dense fireball that exploded.
Yes, that's what they tell children. Ken, why are you going to?
They probably should not have used the word exploded because that.
I agree.
They shouldn't have used fireball either because there was no oxygen and so no fire.
But a child is not going to understand the rapid expansion of space-time, so they should use these terms and then update them with new information when it when they will understand it. It's like that we don't explain to an 8-year-old exactly how birth works, like all of the bits and pieces. It's just when a mummy and daddy love each other, they, do something and produce. Yeah, this is the thing. You can't explain some concepts to children like you would scientifically. You can't do that. This is an absolutely idiotic. Please don't do that, Wayne. Please don't do that.
You need to call them up. American Museum of Natural History. You want to write that down? Please correct them.
Sure, I'll put a complaint.
Put in a complaint. Correct them.
He's talking about his racing games.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's fine then. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Wayne's often at the track, as it were.
Yep.
But the universe from nothing. SciTech Daily. It came into existence around 1/10,000th of a second after the Big Bang. The tiny particles that make up atomic nucleus came up 1/10,000th of a second after. Now, would it be okay with you?
Yeah, but that says matter, right? So matter's a very specific thing in science. Like you can still have energy without matter, right? Like this is the thing. He said, oh, well, if there's no matter, there's nothing. No, that isn't true. A lot of times there's no matter. There's still something there.
Oh, yeah. Matter makes up something like 6% of the universe. It's not a lot.
So there is, you can't, he's conflating terms again, because that's what he does. Like Kant's conflating no matter with no thing at all. And we don't even know that nothing, like the philosophical no thing, like an absence of anything, can even exist. And it seems to be a contradiction in terms, because how can it exist if it's not there? There's nothing. It's such a dishonest thing to do.
If some people on this planet who have to share the planet with you and I don't believe that and don't want their kids taught that,
well, then don't go to science class. Homeschool your kids. It's terrible, but you're doing a disservice to your kids.
Yeah, there's what the parents want and what's best for the kids often come into conflict, which is why there is an international treaty guaranteeing that children have the right to an education, regardless of whether their parents want them to be educated or just keep believing whatever cultish nonsense they happen to subscribe to. And a fun fact about that is the United States is the only country that has not signed on.
Wow. Is that true? Wow. That's insane. Well, so they will get taught science as part of the curriculum. They don't have to believe it. They just have to be taught it. And that's because it is science. This whole thing of, oh, it's your religion. No, it's not. It's science. the reason why science is so necessary is because it produces results. Now, Kent's basically saying, hey, you should teach them, things like gravity and, you know what I mean? Kinetic forces and all of the other stuff. You should teach them all of that and leave out cosmology and evolution, because I don't believe in that. It's the same argument as a flat earther saying, hey, you shouldn't teach the globe earth in schools because that's a religion and I don't believe in that. We don't teach science based upon what you personally do and do not believe. We base it on what is the scientific evidence for things. That's all. Like, it doesn't matter who believes what. And if we did that, if we changed the curriculum to what everybody believed, we would be teaching some kids that aliens are about to take over the government. We would be teaching other kids that Bigfoot is out wandering around the wilderness. We'd be teaching other kids yet still that the creator formed the universe out of nothing, and other kids that the Big Bang occurred and we don't know the origins of that. The only one of those has scientific evidence behind it. So if you are in a science classroom, that's the one that's going to be taught. And tough crap to you, because that is the scientific one.
And there's real applications to this. We're not talking about creating a narrative about where the universe came from, what you want to believe about how we got to the present. There's real harm in not teaching evolution. Like, just in medical science, for example, understanding evolution is how we figure out how bacteria adapt, how they develop antibiotic resistance, how viruses mutate. Without evolution, we'd be vulnerable to a lot of diseases that we don't necessarily have to be. If we stop teaching evolution, we're going to run into a lot of trouble. And that's just, off the top of my head in one area of application. Agriculture depends on knowledge of how evolution works. It touches everything.
Yeah. It is one of the two pillars of medicine, the other one being germ theory, which is sort of that all transmissions usually, or all pathogens usually have a transmission vector. That they are the backbone of our medical, and you can read this on scientific websites like the American Science Academy, for instance, will say evolution is the backbone, one of the backbones of our medical industry. It just is. And I'm sorry that your religious belief caused you to disagree with that, but the people working in those industries have a different opinion, and I will take theirs over your religious belief. And I want to give a big shout out to Robin Webster. Glorious Robin again, $2. Happy birthday, Sydney Rapper. Happy birthday, John. I didn't know it was your birthday. Happy birthday, mate.
You're in good company. Today happens to be Master Tomer's birthday as well.
I can't really give you a birthday gift, but I can give gifts to everybody, I guess. I have to give away these at some point. So, bam. This one's for John. So thank John for this one. And we've got Titan Uranus. Titan Uranus.
Oh, hold on. I have that.
Okay.
Where is it? Here we go.
Yeah.
Titan Uranus. Titan Uranus.
Blaster Master. Missing mod. Congratulations. There you go. Yeah, and you knew there was a reason why you hang around. Gonna go for it. Congratulations, Peter. And Fenton Mully. Congratulations. Yeah, Peter got one. There you go. None of them for actually John, who I was hoping, Sydney Raptor, I was hoping it would hit, but there you go. So thanks Sydney Raptor for that one. Happy birthday, mate. Even though it didn't hit you, happy birthday. I don't know if I've got any more of those. I don't know.
You should have 10 a month if you.
Yeah, I think I gave.
I think you've done one already this month. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I just like doing it.
It's fun. Oh, Tom Baker's birthday too. Would you like a jelly baby, John?
Yeah. Actually, he's probably one of my he's one of my old school. He is my favorite old school Doctor Who. I got to say, I think David Tennant's my favorite new school one, but And this tangent is definitely not my fault. This is definitely somebody else's fault. Left-handed Jedi, I blame you. No, don't thank me. This is Sydney Raptor. It's all Sydney Raptor. Because I probably would have forgotten these entirely if Robin didn't say something. So listen. I'm terrible. I know. Oh, and a $5 super chat. Yes, Tom Baker of Doctor Who fame turned 9 today. Yep, definitely my favorite old school Doctor Who. Scarf, jelly babies, just wonderful. Would you like a jelly baby? And Jester Lordful gifted 5 Mercury memberships. They're trying to hit John, aren't they? They're now trying to hit Sydney Raptor. Guero Sin Fei was and Zysifer. IC Spin was gifted membership. Me was gifted membership, and Uncle Charlie. Congratulations.
Nice.
Winner, chicken dinner.
We need Eric Wander. Eric is a sharpshooter with membership gifting.
Is he? Oh, okay. Wow.
They say, look, that's not science. It's not testable and provable yet. The fact that somebody could do it in the laboratory will certainly not mean it did happen in history. Why do we all have to pay for this stuff to be taught to the kids like it's part of science when, even if it's true, it hasn't been proven yet?
Well, it has evidentiary support. So again, the Big Bang model, as we understand it, has made predictions that have been verified. So that is meeting the gold standard of science. And again, nucleosynthesis, which is what you're talking about, which is like the development of atomic particles, nuclei, atoms, etc.
Yeah, sorry for the pausing. That isn't me. You can see Donnie in the background actually is moving fine kind of thing. It's the absolutely crappy connection from Dinosaur Adventureland, because Donnie's just moving fine. I was kind of worried about that, but it's not my side.
There are certain predictions within the math of the Big Bang model about there's certain ratios, and we have seen that when we look around, we see confirming what was predicted by the Big Bang model. So there is evidence to support this, and it is following the scientific method. So I would say that qualifies to be taught as science.
Okay, when was the red shift discovered approximately? Do you remember?
It'd be like Hubble back around the 20s.
Okay, 1920s. I could read this Bible here and find 17 times where.
Sorry, what was that?
Slafer, but yeah, late 19 teens, but yeah, about there, close enough.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Hubble measured the redshift.
Confirmed, yeah, measured it. Gotcha. Yeah. But sort of listen to this.
God said the stars were stretched out into place. The Bible says God made the earth, 2 days later made the stars and stretched them out.
No, it doesn't actually say that. It says stretched out the heavens. Yeah, that's not what it says. It says he stretched out the heavens.
Yeah,
I can find the verse.
There's a lot of notes on that, but surface level, stretched as in the past tense. And if Kent wants to use that as justification for how the universe came to be this way, then Kent has to accept the expanding universe and scrap his 6,000 years nonsense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it also says he stretches out the heaven. He stretches out the heavens like a canopy and stretches them out like a tent to live in. The problem with that is that yes, people thought the sky was heaven, but that's not the case anymore. These people say, "Oh no, it's not the sky that's heaven. It's the place where God dwells that's separate from this physical reality." So you've really got to find out what heavens actually means. But yeah,
that's a good point too. If you're going to say that the cosmos is the heavens, then where's God? It says he lives in there. Right. He lives in heaven. Where is he? That's why they had to come up with that transcendent being nonsense, because we looked and we didn't find a God.
But there's
that's not heaven. It's outside the universe somewhere.
There's a big difference between sort of saying, hey, he stretched out, they're sort of making poetic language and saying, hey, he stretches out the heavens kind of thing. And that could be interpreted in a number of different ways, because obviously Kent doesn't interpret it like that because he doesn't think the universe is that old. So he doesn't interpret it that way, as you correctly pointed out. But there's a big difference between that and saying, hey, if the Big Bang model is false, we shouldn't see any background radiation kind of thing. And then positing, hey, there should be some background radiation left over from the remnants of the Big Bang. and then people going out and finding exactly what you predicted. There's a big difference between those two. One of them is a sort of poetic language that could be interpreted in any number of ways. The other is a accurate and definitive prediction of what we should find when we look. That's it.
Yeah.
And didn't they also predict the frequency of it as well? Like what sort of like what radiation we should find, kind of thing?
Yeah. Gamow at L. He actually had a really big team, but George Gamow gets the credit for being the lead author on that paper. I believe they predicted 3.7 degrees K with a degree and a half margin of error bar. It's not dead accurate, but it was in the realm of the prediction. And additionally, there was a lot of estimating going on. It's sort of like how we give Eratosthenes credit for estimating the size of the circumference of the Earth, the radius of the Earth, rather.
Right.
He wasn't dead on, but he was so damn close that it's pretty impressive.
So the difference between that and stretched out heavens like a tent, there's a big difference between the predictions that are being made. In one sense, you're like, hey, we should find this radiation and it should be this temperature, in a range of this temperature, and we find it. And the other is simply poetic language that could be interpreted almost any way if you wanted to. There's no comparison between these two. There's one is just poetic language. The other is a testable prediction. The idea that they should be on equal footing is absurd.
I could have predicted by reading this book before Hubble discovered it that there would be a redshift, because redshift is the dot.
Yeah, where does it say redshift? Yeah,
there is no way he could have.
Then why didn't, like, tons of people have read the Bible, why did nobody predict the redshift, Kent? From the Bible, why did we have to go to physicists and things if it has this predictive power? Are you okay, Amber? You may have frozen. Oh, you're all right.
Yeah, I'm good. I was just
okay.
I was contemplating replying to Daryl, but it would be a really long reply for not a lot of point.
Yeah. Look, this is the thing. Like, if you get sick of Kent, tell me. I understand getting sick of Kent. Absolutely get sick of him. And we can wrap it up. I might not do the questions. There were a couple of interesting ones, but mostly they were just, Kent's audience asking really dumb stuff, basically. Really sorry, but some of the questions.
I mean, they've been listening to Kent for years, so what would you expect?
Effect of light, the change of velocity and stuff like. So if I had made that prediction before I wasn't born in 1920, but if I made that prediction from this book, that, hey, there's going to be a red shift, and sure enough, they come along and discover it. Wow, that proves the Bible's right. God stretched out the heavens.
Yeah, that's so nonsensical.
In 2,000 years, somehow no one made that prediction. Weird.
Yeah. He's basically retro. It's a post hoc sort of. He's massaging what we know now to fit this thing, sort of post occurrence. So we find this. If scientists find it, and then you go, oh, well, if you take this in the Bible to mean it, this thing, it's the same as the prophecies of Notre Dame. Like, something will happen, and then someone will go, oh, look, if you read 3 sparrows will alight on a branch, it can mean this event that just occurred. But there's no reason to believe that. It's just because the language is poetic. It could mean literally
anything.
Nice
shot, Robin.
Wow. Robin Webster, what are you doing? That is insane. Robin Webster, she shoots, she scores, and hits Sydney Raptor dead in the face. Congratulations, Sydney. Happy birthday, mate. I swear, Robin... Look, I'm becoming a believer. It's a miracle. It's a literal miracle right in front of us. Wow. And it's only one. She just
But which god is it proof of? I'm still
Oh.
confused.
Proof of Robin. Sydney didn't have gifts on. Oh, yeah, that's a good point. There you go. Wow, it's still impressive. Like, of all the people you could have hit, I'm still impressed. I'm still really impressed. Like, that is, look, I think Robin is actually a goddess in human form that's come down to just screw with us all.
We
basically,
do have an awful lot of divinities in our group for a bunch of atheists.
We do. We definitely do.
Would that be then science?
So,
well, at least I can see them. That goes a long way to proving your existence. Me being able to see you,
That does help. Yes,
it helps a lot.
I'm not an expert on biblical scholarship or Bible verses, but it's my understanding that those verses all use the past tense for stretched. And then our observations, like in 1998, it was observed that
5 mark readerships. Okay, we've got Ian Tyskovsky. I'm sorry if I brutally mispronounced that. Was gifted the membership. Guy Biz was gifted the membership. Skirmish was gifted the membership, and Toyboat was gifted the membership. Yeah, I love that name. Toyboat was gifted the membership by Left-Handed Jedi. Isaac Kabir was gifted a membership. Thank you so much, Left-Handed Jedi. You're amazing. Still, Robin's. I'm sorry, you're never going to beat what Robin just did. That is just insanely good. But thank you.
Currently, the expansion of the universe is actually accelerating. So not only is it expanding right now, but its expansion rate is accelerating right now.
Yep.
So I don't know if I would.
Yeah, and that's the redshift. It's like the further things are away from us, the faster they are going away from us, and that's how redshift works.
Necessarily count that as a verified prediction if it was in the past tense. Again, I don't read the original Hebrew. I'm not an expert on this, but I would also say that a hallmark of scientific predictions is that they are repeatable. So I don't know. I mean,
so do another Big Bang, then make another universe.
Yeah, that's not how that works.
That's not how that works. Although he mentions the original Hebrew, the story wasn't actually in Hebrew originally. It was copied from the Babylonian mythologies during the exile period. The original story has Marduk stretching out the corpse of Tiamat to form the heavens.
Ooh.
So there's that.
That sounds like a Dungeons and Dragons adventure. To be honest with you, I got to say, like Tiamat, isn't that the dragon god in Dungeon? Anyway, speaking of dragon gods, here is I Killed Earl, new member. Congratulations! Enjoy your emotes and everything. How did mine go away? It was probably a gifted membership. I don't know. I don't know. But it's back, I guess. Yeah.
Well, we can do repeatable observations of things like the cosmic microwave background, or like the Hubble flow, which is the relationship between the distance of galaxies and their rate of redshift and Doppler effects.
Okay, so if the universe is accelerating, where's this new energy coming from to accelerate it?
That's almost a valid question.
It's really not.
Well, what's causing the dark energy that's responsible for the expansion in the first place is still an open question.
But it's not really accelerating as in things are getting faster moving away. It's just that because all the space is expanding, and I hate the way I've just said that. All the space is expanding. The space in between is expanding as well, as so the further it gets away, the further space expands, and the faster things far away from us are moving. It's not actually accelerating as in moving in relation to the space-time that it's in. It's just the gaps in between everything is getting faster. So if you have, and the balloon analogy is really good with this, right? So if you blow up a balloon and you have 3 dots, once the balloon is half full, when you keep blowing it up, the space in between the first and second dots will expand, and the second and the third dots will expand. So it's actually expanding twice as fast because there's more room in between. That's the acceleration. it's just he does not understand the first thing about this, and it's like, it really is like explaining it to a child. You know, this whole idea of, oh, well, if things are just whizzing away from us, no, things aren't moving away from us in that sense. It's space expanding in between us and it. That's what is happening. Oh boy.
Well, you're hitting on another frontier of physics. That's dark energy. So currently, it's a big question mark in physics right now. Dark energy, we don't know what that is.
We have to just imagine that it's out there and it happened. Okay.
Well, there is.
Oh, he's going to his toys now. It's you know, he is like a child. I you know.
In fairness, I have one of those too.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. But you know, you're like a child as well, an innocent child.
Yes.
Yeah, I swear, if I'm ever in a debate with Hovind and he pulls out his sponge board, I swear I'm going to pull out my Hovind wig and glasses. I swear, and just.
Oh, you should. That would be amazing.
Yeah, I'm considering debate him again, because last time I ran into him in that room, I was mostly there to hassle Donnie, to be honest with you. But no, I was there to give Kent a hard time as well. But the you know, he sort of said, "I will debate me." I really don't want to debate him until he's not, you know, until he had this appeal for his domestic violence. I don't. It's tough, right? Because I thought this would all be over, and regardless of whether he was found innocent or guilty, you know, we would have an answer. But it just dragged on and on and on. You know, this appeal is taking forever, so I don't know what's going to happen. I'll think about it. Maybe I should do a poll.
Solid evidence for dark energy. We don't know what it exactly is composed of or all of its properties, but not just the expansion of the universe accelerating, but even when they do analysis of this cosmic microwave background, there's something called like the Sachs-Wolf effect that essentially hints at this dark energy from even back in the cosmic microwave background. So there are independent corroborating lines of evidence, at least showing us that there is this dark energy something out there, but it's not well characterized, although we do have evidence it exists, similar to dark matter.
But it's not God.
I don't think so, because it's naturalistic for all that we can see.
We don't know what it is, but we know it's naturalistic, even though we don't know what it is.
That is methodological naturalism. It's a hallmark of science. If you want to say dark energy is God, to me that seems strange. But if that's what your God is, dark energy,
I don't believe that for a second.
Okay,
but I just think.
Yeah, I don't believe that for a second. Yeah, well, I mean, you can do that. But it's not.
Yeah, why not? Gods are always just a personification of something, a personification of lightning bolts, a personification of the angry seas, a personification of earth and home. Why not have a god of dark energy?
Sure. And I mean, it's a god of the gaps. It's like, well, you don't know what caused it. Why isn't it God? Well, that's just a god of the gaps. Why isn't it leprechauns? Why isn't it, you know, Bigfoot Jesus? Why isn't it Nil, the creator god? Wow, you beat me to it.
I knew I read your thoughts from across the globe. Nil, the great not god and creator of creator gods.
Why isn't it the Blarney stone, the magical stone that created the universe? Like, this is the problem with God of the gaps. You've got no reason to insert God in there, except you have a presupposition that the God is responsible, and that's all.
If it take a lot of energy to push a star, they're pretty heavy,
yeah.
Okay, and to accelerate them, gee whiz, what kind of gear shift you got on that? You know, kind of transmission and all that stuff, the drivetrain. So that would take a whole lot of energy, and all that energy was also in that dot, smaller than an atom, right?
Again, with dark energy, it's very hard to make any kind of solid statement like that about especially how dark energy changes throughout the history of the universe's development. So I don't know how to answer that question.
So we don't know what it is. We don't know where it came from. We don't know exactly what it's doing, but we got to teach it to all the kids that this is science.
Well, just because Grayson doesn't understand everything doesn't mean we don't have some answers to some of these, a reason to believe in these things. Like, it's generally held that the dark energy, for lack of a better term, is a constant. But as the galaxies move away from each other, they're less gravitationally bound because of that inverse square law Ken helpfully mentioned earlier. And so the dark energy is able to expand the space between them even faster. To put it another way, dark energy has always been moving at the same speed, for lack of a better term, But when the galaxies were closer, they were constantly falling towards each other and negating part of that momentum. And they've lost speed as they've moved further apart.
Yeah, and Judy's got a good point. It's not a debate. It's just Kent asking questions and acting smug. I kind of agree. Yes, I get what you mean. It was billed as a debate, so I guess I went with that. But at the start, I said it was like just Grayson teaching Kent science, essentially. That's all it is. But we're not here for Kent. We're really here for Grayson, who did just amazing. And here's the thing. He says, "Oh, you're teaching children." No one's teaching children about dark matter. Like that is not part of the curriculum of children, right? If you're talking like up to they might touch on it in high school maybe, but at that point, is that person a child? No. Like, but you would not be like, dark matter would not be on the curriculum anywhere in any school unless you're doing astronomy, right? Unless you're actually in university doing astronomy. Why would you be teaching any student about dark matter? Beyond me.
Well, to my understanding, dark energy is not taught in public K-12 education.
Big Bang sure is.
Yeah, but the
Big Bang sure is. Yeah, but we have evidence for that. What are you talking about?
Like, for a guy who wants us to teach stuff there is no evidence for at all in schools, he has a weird view on things that we do have evidence for.
Well, this is sort of an attempt at Mott and Bailey fallacy kind of thing, where you've got a stronger, more tenuous position and you're trying to conflate it with a more secure position. So your more secure position is they shouldn't teach dark energy in school. And Grayson agrees, we shouldn't teach dark energy in school unless it's in university. We're talking about high school and things like that. Your primary and secondary education. We shouldn't be teaching dark energy in that. It's pointless, there's no point to it. But you're teaching Big Bang, and that's his Bailey, that's his secure point kind of thing. Like the contentious, sorry, that's the Mott is his contentious position is you shouldn't teach Big Bang, but he goes back to you shouldn't teach it. It fails completely, but that's what he's attempting. He's attempting to have push a very contentious position, you shouldn't teach Big Bang, by using the argument of the Bailey, which is you shouldn't teach dark energy.
I mean, I don't even see a problem with teaching dark energy because it's okay to teach kids, here's our model. There are still some question marks in there. Like, we shouldn't pretend that we have all the answers, because that would make us no better than a religion.
I kind of disagree, and the reason why I disagree is because the curriculum can only teach so much, and there's much more important things to learn. Like Big Bang, that's sort of important. If to learn, hey, that's where the universe, that's what we know about the universe for sure. Dark energy is kind of a problem in physics that we don't really have answers for, and isn't really pertinent to those sort of questions. I just feel like that's something for people specializing in that field. Like, I mean, you might do computing in primary and secondary school. You might even do a bit of programming, but you're not going to go into really complex flip-flops and circuits kind of thing. You're not going to go into how sort of architecture works kind of thing. Like that's for when you go into it in university. That isn't for primary and secondary school, because you can't teach everything to kids in school. You've got to have people specializing in these fields. But I mean, you can disagree. I'm more than happy. Like, you could teach just the concept, sure.
That's kind of. I think it's to a certain extent necessary, but again, it depends on what level you're educating at. Like, if you're teaching, primary school students, then you might just stick to the very basics of, science. Our current understanding is that the universe began something like 14 billion years ago with an event that's called the Big Bang. and everything just kind of expanded since then. And just leave it at that. Like, that would
Yeah.
for primary school
Yeah.
kids.
And plus, the other thing about dark energy is I don't think that the teacher could explain it, much less, the kids understand it. We've got to gear stuff so not only is the information that we're putting out there able for the kids to understand, but the teacher has a working knowledge of it sufficient in order to explain it correctly. And I don't think dark energy would a secondary teacher wouldn't understand dark energy. Anybody barely understands dark energy. So, yeah.
Big Bang, I mean, we knew about the Big Bang long before we knew about dark energy. So,
well, the major evidence for the Big Bang for decades has been this redshift.
So
the stars seem to be receding, and I would agree with that. Based on the redshift, it looks like all the stars are racing away from us, almost like it started from us on Earth, and then God made the stars and stretched them out, like my book says. I guess.
God damn it, Kent.
Wow.
First of all, the redshift is not the primary piece of evidence. It's one
Correct.
thing that indicated that might be a possibility. You have to combine it with general relativity to even get a concept of an expanding universe. The CMB is much more powerful. Second, it's not the stars that are racing away, it's distant galaxies, the fact we're even aware of other galaxies. That happened 100 years ago. We are at the century mark this year. That's relatively new knowledge. That's how fast science moves.
Yeah.
Like, oh, so much frustration.
Yeah. But Kent loves science, like, come on now. Like, but this sort of is a heliocentric universe that he's sort of suggesting here, that everything is like we know what position we are in, say, the Milky Way, for instance. Like, it's not at the center. We're on an
very much
spiral
not.
arm. Yeah. We're on one of the outward spiral arms. We're sort of very not in the center.
And so, thank goodness, because we know what's in the center too, and it's not a fun time.
Yeah, that would be Sagittarius A, which is a supermassive black hole. That's true. And it's sort of like, well, we can see those stars in relation to one another, and we can see things in relation to one another. So we know that galaxies are moving away from each other because of parallax, the way that things move when we observe them. So yeah, technically it could be the entire universe. Like, mathematically, there's no difference between us moving and the entire universe moving around us. But that, when you look at it, obviously due to gravity, everything in the Milky Way is moving around Sagittarius A. That's just reality. There's no. It's kind of nonsense to suggest that.
Yeah,
but mathematically,
we could be in the center thing. That's, that violates the Copernican principle that we're not in any particular special place in the cosmos. But also, like, if you could advert the thought and be like, maybe the universe is holding still and the Earth is shrinking really fast. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to twist it around like that.
Assembly of God. What keeps the spiral arms of the galaxy from flying apart? Gravity. So it's basically revolving around Sagittarius A, the supermassive black hole. It's like saying what keeps satellites from whizzing off into space? What keeps them going around the Earth? Gravity.
I don't see a conflict there between that and this and the science.
Yeah. So in the history of the development of the Big Bang, like Hubble's observations with the redshifts and how they correlate with distances, that was a major evidence that was being used for the Big Bang, but it wasn't universally accepted in the field until the observations of the cosmic microwave background. And for physicists, that was pretty much the final nail in the coffin of, well, now everyone basically acknowledges the Big Bang because the cosmic microwave background is such strong evidence for it.
Okay, so if I go down here to Interstate 60.
Sorry?
Except Fred Hoyle.
Except Fred Hoyle, yeah. And Fred Hoyle, did he ever accept it? I think he died, like, still sort of saying, no, it's not.
Yeah, Big Bang, he was still working on a semi-steady state model because he just Yeah, he died scribbling equations trying to make it not be true. And Fred Hoyle gets a lot of flack because of his recalcitrance to accept the Big Bang along with, everyone else in the field. He gets labeled a quack and a crackpot, but he was a legit astrophysicist. He's the one who figured out stellar nucleosynthesis. The dude had a brain. So it's not, he won awards for that shit. It's not really accurate to dismiss him as a crackpot. But the fact that he was a brilliant scientist and tried his entire life to knock this theory down and failed is a pretty strong indicator that maybe it's on the right track.
And we don't have all the answers yet. It's not, it's sort of a theory that we know what's happened, but there's going to be a lot of changes to it. There's going to be a lot of more precise observations coming out that will change our understanding of it. That's happened in medicine. It's happened in computing. It's happened in every single science out there. There's no problem with that. If you say, hey, you don't know exactly what causes this. Yeah, but we know it happened. There's nothing contentious about that.
4 miles away, and I see a car headed toward Mobile, Alabama, 100 miles away, or 90 miles. Does that prove, and they're going 70 miles an hour toward Mobile, does that prove they started in Montgomery hour and a half ago? Or could they have just got on at the last exit?
No, yeah, of course not.
No, we didn't know, right?
Yeah.
So could the redshift have started? God made the earth, made the stars, stretched them out, and Adam and Eve see the taillights of the stars as they're heading away, and it all started 6,000 years ago.
Well, if there was any evidence to support that, then I would certainly pay attention to the evidence. So all scientists.
Yeah, and this sort of gets to I was having a conversation with somebody on last Thursdayism kind of thing. Like if you're proposing that a supernatural being created everything old, well, it's an unfalsifiable proposition. It's like saying, hey, there's an invisible, intangible dragon in my garage. Prove me wrong. There's no real way to prove that wrong or right, because yes, a omniscient, omnipotent God could have created everything last Thursday with all of our memories intact, all of our things, and that's when it started. But it's not science, because science is about testable predictions. It's about falsifiability. And if you can't falsify it, then there's almost like there's, okay, that could have happened, sure. Now demonstrate that it did and you've got something. But that's not science, because science is about sort of a methodological naturalism. It starts with observations in the natural world and it looks for natural explanations to them. It precludes supernatural explanations because supernatural explanations at the moment are unfalsifiable. And there's a billion things you could put in there. You could say that fairies created the universe like that around, say, Jupiter for some reason. I mean, well, we're making crap up. Let's just go hog wild. But created them around, Sirius star, and it was only done 3 days ago. Where does this end? Like all of these things you can insert, and there's no way anyone can prove you wrong. That doesn't make you right.
Theories.
Sorry, this really annoys me. That annoys me when people sort of say, oh, but could this have happened? Well, yes, like just because it could doesn't mean it did. Like we're interested in what did happen, not all the possibilities of unfalsifiable things, of which there are trillions out there. I could make up any old crap and put it in there. And you can't prove me wrong. Prove things are right, not make up crap that can't be proved wrong. Hovind.
And facts are provisional. They're subject to change if new evidence comes out that shows that they were wrong. So I'll be open-minded to any evidence, but as long as I'm not seeing any evidence to support that, then that seems to be the proper paradigm.
Okay, I do appreciate that you're open-minded and that you come here and look at our place and we've got nothing to hide here. That's why we're going to get you converted. You keep that open mind, we're going to drop God in there. Okay. All right. Okay. So my objection has always.
Yeah, that's a testable prediction. You're going to fail. I don't think Grayson's going to be converted by you, Ken. I'm not saying it can't happen. I just don't think it'd be Kent that's going to do it. I would be very surprised. But he always does this rhetoric, you know. We're going to convert you. You're going to be on our side. I mean, I was hearing who was it? Was it Praise sitting there going, "Oh, you know, the evolution is about to be overturned." It's like, are you serious? Like, he actually believes that evolution is like 2 seconds away of being overturned and discarded by the scientific community.
I mean, that would be fantastic, because as I keep saying over and over and over, we want to be shown we're wrong, but you have to show us. But yeah, when we're wrong, A, we can stop being wrong, and B, we learn even more, which is, in fact, the fucking point of doing science.
Right. Is proving that thing that you thought is wrong. Falsifying your hypothesis is the entire point of science.
Man, they teach this Big Bang stuff like it is part of science, and there's so many things about it that are not answered yet. And even if it's true, like I said, until it's proven, it shouldn't be taught in a science class, because other people object to that. Millions of people don't want their kid taught that stuff.
Yeah, tons of flat earthers don't want to be taught their kids it's a globe. Tough. It's tough that we go with what the science is. There's tons of people that object to you know, all kinds of different things.
Yeah, and he's also loading the question, I guess. That's probably the wrong term, but my meat brain is, you know, made of meat.
Yeah.
Don't teach it until it's proven, because it's just a theory, you know, like gravity and germs and things.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
What is your standard, Kent? Where do you put the line? Beyond this point of certainty, we can teach it in schools, because, I mean, there are certain applications of calculus that don't even meet the level of standard that the Big Bang and evolution have met, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So why do we all pay for it?
Well, like I've said, it does fulfill the golden standard of science, which is testable, repeatable, falsifiable predictions that have been shown to be accurate.
Well, if it's repeatable, have another Big Bang. I'd like to have my own universe. Make me one.
The predictions for the observations are repeatable.
Okay. So I can't have my own?
You can repeatedly observe the evidence that shows the Big Bang happened.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he's not, you know, this is just conflation and semantics and dishonesty from Kent.
Kent is repeatable. He
Yeah,
said that already.
Show me God creating stuff the first time, perhaps, you know, like get God to create another kind of animal that we've never seen before. Go for it.
I would love to see something just poof into existence right in front of me. I mean, I may not believe in Yahweh, but I believe that there was something very significant going on that we need more answers for.
Let's see. So then the next step would be, once we get the Big Bang that made all the material, now we have to get it collected into planets and stars, which you think gravity did all of that.
Sure thing.
And somewhere along the line, I think you would agree that there are living things on this earth, plant life, animal life, human life, that are different than the rocks and minerals.
Yep.
Okay. How did life get started in your theory?
So abiogenesis is another one where there is no current scientific consensus. It's one of the biggest open questions in science. There are several competing hypotheses like RNA world, protein world. My own personal favorite hypothesis is called amyloid world.
Grayson does an amazing video on amyloid world. I highly recommend it. I might put his channel in the chat again, and probably pin it would be a good idea, so I don't constantly have this problem. Would be very intelligent, and therefore I'm not doing it. So yeah, I might just put that in. I really want to plug Grayson because he's just doing amazing at the moment.
Yeah, Amyloid World it's one of his more popular videos. I should probably watch it at some point.
Yeah, I watched it. It's very, very interesting. Just incredibly interesting. I'm not sure I understood all of it, but you know, incredibly interesting. You know, I'm not huge on biology. It's probably one of my weak points. But the sort of idea that you don't need water in this system, all you need are these chains is just fascinating.
It's a little bit lesser known, more niche, but it's just my personal favorite. I'm not saying it's really how things happen. I just think it's a very neat theory. But we don't have when a hypothesis starts garnering more and more evidence to support it, it can graduate to a theory.
Right.
We do not have yet a theory of abiogenesis. So we only have competing hypotheses, but nobody has a complete mechanism to explain it. But just the general picture is that you need for Darwinian evolution to kick in to start developing the complexities of life. So you need a few basic things for Darwinian evolution to kick in. You need a self-replicating population. This could be like a chemical system. This could be like an amyloid, which is a type of protein, or an RNA, or a metabolism of chemicals, whatever. Something that is self-replicating.
That's awfully complicated right there, but go ahead.
Yes, but we...
Yeah, like this is getting awfully complicated. Like no one's saying this is a simple process. Like it's like I want to say, well, it's complicated, it's designed. No, that's not the case. And here's the thing about the design argument. Like just because, like just say we found out that life was designed, just say we had solid evidence for that we don't have. That doesn't prove a god. It could prove aliens. Like this is the thing. You have to demonstrate your god, not just sort of, disprove abiogenesis. And that's what frustrates me about Kent is he never defends his own worldview. He just attacks everybody else. And we got a super chat from Jester Lord of Fools from $5. A Kent Hovind debate is a great example of testable, repeatable, and making predictions. Yeah, I kind of, it's sad, but I recommend people debate Kent Hovind as their first sort of major debate because you can prepare for it so well. He will say exactly the same things over and over ad nauseum. There is no new stuff. There's nothing unexpected. It is exactly the same things, time in, time out. Hovindisms.
Yeah. Kick the Kent has long been considered a rite of passage for new atheists eager to get into debate.
But thank you so much, Jester. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
We have seen self-replicating chemical systems come about naturalistically. So you need a self-replicating system. There needs to be some manner of inheritance and some amount of variation that has different fitness effects. If you have those characteristics, then Darwinian selection kicks in as a process, and you can see complexity and adaptations and things evolve.
Well, maybe you can tell me, I'm going to show you what you've heard me teach in my seminar on this before, but show me where these people are wrong. National Geographic, the Earth formed 4.5 billion years ago. It was a uniform ball of hot rock. Do you believe that?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, that's not too bad.
Yeah, again, it's extremely oversimplified, probably for brevity or educational purposes, but sure, no major problems with that so far.
Uniform, for a layman person's perspective. Sure, I can agree with that. It's close enough. It's like 4.65 billion years ago. It's not exactly uniform, but yes, it's basically right.
Then here's a fact monster. I don't know what they are. Earth began as a ball of molten rock. So this was still really hot. All these particles that from this big expansion, the Big Bang, got together to make an Earth about 8,000 miles in diameter.
No.
Well, no, that's not exactly what we're talking about because all of the heavier elements had to come from supernova. So it was that all of the particles got together, exploded again, got together, exploded again, and then we start to see the formation of planetary systems. It's not exactly what he's trying to say.
And gravity pulled it into a round shape. It is not flat. By the way, thank you for debating the flat earthers. You flat earthers, knock it off, okay? You're embarrassing Christians, right?
This is the thing, they use exactly the same arguments. They use exactly the same arguments.
You can see that it's embarrassing when they do it, but he uses the same evidence. Whatever.
Creationists have no self-awareness whatsoever. They just lack any sense of irony.
Yeah, but as to his claim there, it shows how little he understands because he doesn't really care about what the truth is. He's, a young Earth creationist. It isn't just that the materials the Earth is made from had to come from a supernova, but that they weren't still hot from the Big Bang,
right.
9 billion years before then. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Shit gets cold in space. It takes a while, but yeah, by the time the Earth was accreting from, floating gases and loose dust and also planetoids slamming into each other and things, those impacts, they produce a lot of heat too, It's pretty trippy.
I just want to say that this is a point that Kent and I can very much agree on, that the flat earthers are silly. So I wish, Kent, I have debated several flat earthers myself. I wish that you would use your talents and skills to redirect it from the science and redirect it to the flat earthers and debate them. I would love to see a debate with you and a flat earther.
I'm not redirect it from science, because evolution is not part of science.
Yeah, it is. It 100%
It
is.
very much is.
But yeah, I agree. Like, if he would debate flat earthers, I think everybody would be happy, including the flat earthers, actually. So maybe that isn't such a good idea. I think maybe
It'd still be fun to watch, though. But on the note of evolution being science or not, I'm suddenly reminded. This is my tangent. The other day, I think it was Jay Bundy mentioned how many breakthroughs in having to do with evolution have there been in the past 10 years? We can't even count them, right? Whereas, or even the last year, but how many breakthroughs have there been in astrophysics in the last year? 2.
Yeah. Maybe a little bit more in astrophysics. I'm not sure about that, actually. 2 major ones. There's definitely been major breakthroughs.
Discoveries, sure. But one of them, it isn't even really astrophysics, it's more general physics, that antimatter falls downward, because we were not sure about that at all. That actually was a big one.
We disagree on that.
I redirected from evolution. I love science. We have a science center. You toured it today. Okay, so you agree the Earth was a hot ball of rock. Here it is from Answers. Oh, this is Story Maps, whatever that is. Earth formed as a hot ball of rock. They're all saying this. Answers.com, whatever that is. Earth was a hot ball of melted rock orbiting the sun, and the Earth cooled off and a hard, cold, brittle crust formed. Is that a reasonable summary of what you believe? Okay,
sure thing.
Okay, National Pornographic again. Earth began as a hot ball of rock. New evidence. This is from Universe Today. New research suggests when Earth was still a hot ball of rock, Mars might have been covered with warm blue oceans. So you don't want all that. So the textbooks teach, you can see all my textbook collection here, okay? They teach the kids the Earth began as a hot ball of rock. Now, Mr. Nelson from Texas, where you are, he calls himself R and Rao, the sun god. He said, no evolutionist ever believed we came from a rock. But all the textbooks do say.
He has upgraded his arguments. That's almost impressive. So he got this from Matt Powell, this whole thing. You think you came from a rock because early acidic rains on early primordial Earth leached minerals from the rocks, and that's where the chemicals came from that began the abiogenesis process. So you think your granddaddy was a rock. And then here a bunch of us, myself included, were saying, well, no, not even, that's a huge mischaracterization of that study. But from a certain point of view, we're all from Earth, which is a rock. So we kind of did come from a rock. And Kent must have heard us, because he's updating his argument. He's no longer saying, you think your granddaddy was leached chemicals pulled out by rain and shit. He's saying the Earth itself was the rock.
Well, no, but we think we came from chemicals and elements. Like, even you, Kent, like your mother ingested stuff, and that is now, this is the thing. Like, it's very, very strange the way that you phrased this, because there are a number of elements, hydrogen and other gases involved, oxygen involved, maybe water involved in the process as well. We don't 100% know, but then why aren't we saying that humans came from gases, right? Like, this is the thing. It takes a whole bunch of different things working together. It's not just we came from a rock, like a rock birthed us. This is the conflation that he makes. No, we think we came from chemicals, not a rock.
We're still chemicals. The law of phylogeny holds even back to abiogenesis itself.
Began as a hot ball of rock. So do you disagree with him, or do you agree that we came from, ultimately somewhere, it took a long time, I know, but we came from a hot ball of rock?
Yeah, so when we say where we came from,
you and I, did we come from this ball of rock?
I personally, I don't follow the Gaia hypothesis. Okay. So when I say we, I'm not referring to the Earth. So all that was showing was the Earth was a hot molten ball of rock, but I don't think we came from that hot molten ball of rock, because the material that makes up our body it's not rock, it's not largely mineral, it's largely organic molecules. And these organic molecules, which would have been that self-replicating chemical system that would have been composed of organic molecules. So the things that gave rise to life were not rocks. They weren't part of rocks. They were organic molecules.
So did they come from space?
We have seen organic molecules.
Yeah, they could have. We don't know. But they also could have come from the breakdown of other chemicals on the Earth. That they could have come from space.
Yeah, I like to invoke Forrest Velkai here. When we found that last asteroid with the uracil on it, the nucleo base,
Japanese found it. Yeah.
I wrote to Forrest and I was like, "What do you think about this?" Because we found amino acids and all sorts of fun things, other nucleobases on asteroids and comets before, but this was the first time we were sure that it wasn't contaminated by organic material from Earth. So I said to Forrest, what do you think about this? Does this, support panspermia?
Yeah.
And Forrest said, well, maybe yes, maybe no, but here's the important thing. If these things can form spontaneously on asteroids and comets and shit, then they could definitely form spontaneously on Earth.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Forming and being abundant in space. They're called polyaromatic rings, and we can go and look in space in like space dust on comets. They're full of these organic molecules. Surely you're familiar with like the meteorites that they have analyzed and seen, hey, here's amino acids, here's some nucleobases. They're full of organic compounds. It's very abundant in space.
Well, so I want people to see what you believe. Okay. The Earth was a hot ball of rock, but the organic materials came from space. What made you and I was space dust, basically, landing on the Earth.
That's a fair characterization. Even Carl Sagan would say, we are ultimately derived from space dust. So I think that that's more of a fair characterization than saying that we came from rocks.
Okay, so this textbook goes on to say...
Yeah, I'm not sure he really should have conceded that one, but I get what he's saying, that all of the molecules that we see were created in supernova at one point or another. So we kind of are derived from space dust.
Insofar as the Earth itself is leftovers from supernova remnants, then yeah,
yes,
all of it is stardust. Yeah,
you're right.
Or looking at it another way, we're made from the ashes of burned out stars, reincarnated, brought to a different kind of life.
Yeah. Although I'm not sure stars are life, so I'm not sure about that one.
Life in the metaphorical sense, like they once were full of energy and burned bright, and then they blew up and cooled off, and now here we are, like, waving our arms around.
Yeah.
2.9 billion years ago, the Earth cooled enough for water vapor to condense, and Earth was experiencing violent rainstorms, and it accumulated in Earth's oceans. And in these oceans, 3.5 billion years ago, the first living organisms appeared.
So I think he's reading from hydrovent, the hydrovent hypothesis, I would imagine, which has some problems because water will destroy the thing. So he's just reading from one sort of hypothesis here, and I'm not sure how old it is because, like Ken, if he brings up something scientific, like a scientific paper, first thing to do is ask how old it is, because it's almost certain that it's going to be 20, if not 30 years old.
Very often.
So you don't think
very often.
That's how it happened? Would you help me correct this textbook at least?
Sure. Well, I think that we have evidence for fossilized stromatolites, which would be like single cell cyanobacteria, back to maybe 3.8 billion years ago. So
there's living stromatolites still. There's ones in Western Australia where I am up north. There's actually populations of stromatolites that have survived all this time, which is insane. That's insane.
It's pretty trippy. Also, your general region of the globe has the current record for the oldest microfossils, these same cyanobacteria that Grayson's talking about. We've got dated to 1.75 billion years old, which it's not 3 billion years old, but it supports the thesis that they go back a long fucking way.
And it's slightly more than 6,000, just slightly. Yeah.
This might need to be updated a little bit, but essentially, once the Earth cools down to a point where the water vapor in the air can condense and form liquid water, then yes, you can start to have abiogenesis processes happening in said water.
So all the rocks melted, and the Earth was a hot ball of melted rock orbiting the sun. This is from Bizarre.
Yeah, but even his own paper says that it cooled and then oceans formed. Like, no one's saying that the life formed on molten rock. Like, it's almost like it's cherry picking to such a degree that he'll even put what contradicts him up on the screen. Like, oh, it cooled and then oceans began to form. This is where we believe the origin of life is. He'll ignore all of that and just say, well, it was a molten ball of rock. come on, dude, cherry picking this hard? Like, seriously, leave some cherries for the rest of us. Like, seriously, what are you doing, sir? What are you doing? It's terrible. I mean, this is Donnie level of cherry picking, where he'll find a paper that completely destroys his position and just pick out like one sentence from it, put it up on the screen and go, aha, this paper says this thing. It's incredible.
Berkeley University. I mean, you know, they're University of California. You live in California. Okay. You see Berkeley. They got to be true. And the rain created the oceans, and swimming in the oceans was a bunch of soup, a complex chemical soup of living organisms. Let's see. I go through this all the time. So Earth started as a ball of rock, and then life got started from the soup from the oceans. But the water in the oceans looks to me like it was dissolved minerals coming off of the rock. But you're saying it's also stuff from space landing in the oceans?
Organic material, organic molecules.
So this soup had the right consistency and the right molecules to then come alive.
Yeah, so when I mentioned that there were several hypotheses of abiogenesis, not all of them are just, this aqueous environment. Some of them are having like hot, like wet, dry cycles, like on clay or in shallow pools, or some of them are deep sea hydrothermal vents, which can have their own really complicated
chemical systems.
Yeah, exactly. They have like proton gradients are generated on these hydrothermal vents, like this, similar to how our cells today do work by taking advantage of proton gradients that they create. These proton gradients are naturally occurring at hydrothermal vents, so they wouldn't have to create them in order to harness energy and do work. Okay. So there are different hypotheses for different areas. It wasn't just, general ocean environment. There's lots of different hypotheses, and we don't know which one is the correct one, if any of them currently.
Yeah, actually, we can almost rule out a primordial soup ocean kind of environment, because as I often say, to get liquid water on a planet like Earth, it's both temperature and pressure. And we know from fossils and whatnot that the atmosphere of the early Earth was a lot more like Venus's. It wasn't nearly as thick, but the composition was similar, which means the temperature would be a lot higher, which means oceans couldn't exist. Almost all the water would be in water vapor form in the atmosphere itself. It was only after the early bacterias began to oxygenate the atmosphere, create the great oxidation event that nearly wiped out life, that the composition of the atmosphere changed to a point that large bodies of water even became possible. So life had to precede oceans to make the oceans possible.
Right. Yeah. Okay. But just because that hypothesis ruled out doesn't mean Kent's going to stop from using it. That's the current understanding kind of thing.
Yeah, details.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just sort of he basically has this thing where you've got to commit to one of these, and the scientists, they're not really committing to, they're following the evidence where it leads, not basically going, this is the truth, and saying we absolutely know. But he gets stuck on this. He'll sort of well, tell me how it happens, or else it didn't, it must be God. And that's not how anything works.
I think students in a publicly funded science class should be taught each of those different hypotheses.
If they're interested in them. I don't think that I was taught in detail any of these until more of a
No, I did not learn any of this in secondary or primary or whatever. Like, I didn't even learn any of this in I went to university. I didn't learn any of this. I was doing sort of, networking and computers. Like, this is stuff for, when you're doing biology and things like that. It's not your standard curriculum for secondary school students. They might mention there's competing hypothesis of abiogenesis. They might mention that, but they're not going to go into details. I would be surprised. Sure.
It was just a footnote on evolution. Like, evolution explains the diversity of life. Where life came from is still an open question in science. Chapter 2, here's how we got mammals,
Yeah.
College level in like biochemistry courses. But I think the general picture, right? We talked about the cosmic microwave background before. That would suggest that at one point the entire universe was filled with a somewhat uniform plasma. So we know that at one point the universe did not support life, and we know now that it does support life. So at some point, life had to arise from non-life. Now, science would say that there's a naturalistic mechanism for that. You might say there's a supernatural miracle involved, but at some point life had to come from non-life. So whether or not you want to teach the different hypotheses for abiogenesis just to maybe let people know what's out there or not, or you just want to start with what we do know a very well-supported mechanism for, like the origin of species of life, which is evolution, then that's the prerogative of the textbooks. I wouldn't care either way if the textbooks are teaching abiogenesis.
So if a teacher decides, in my class, I'm going to teach the hot thermal vent, the life formed on clay, life formed in the ocean, could they also include God formed it? So that's another hypothesis.
But it's not a scientific hypothesis because it's not methodologically naturalistic. But I would have a problem if that teacher was trying to pass off like a hypothesis as fact.
Would you have a problem if the teacher was trying to pass off atheism as a fact?
Yeah.
Trying to pass off atheism as a fact. I mean, I get what he's trying to say, but atheism isn't like a true false proposition kind of thing. It's just a belief that no God exists. Like, yes, I would have a problem if a teacher stood there and said, no, God doesn't exist. You can't believe in God because we know that they don't exist. Yes, I would have a problem with that. That would be bringing religion into a science classroom. Like that would be a problem.
Yeah, that would be for a comparative theology kind of course. And even then, I don't think the teacher would present atheism as a fact. Just, here's what Christians believe, here's what Buddhists believe, here's what Zoroastrians believe, and then there's some people who don't believe any of these.
Right. But yeah, and if a science teacher said, hey, here's why we know a God does not exist, I would have a problem with that because that isn't for the science classroom. But, him saying, hey, your evolution is a science is 100% is a religion is 100% wrong. It is a scientific theory. And all of this, it's so weird the way that he's trying to conflate these two things, like really weird.
I don't think that atheism should be taught in a science class.
Okay. So then life finally gets started, and do you believe it was a single cell life form that started first?
Well, it would be, I think, classified as a protocell, but eventually, yes, you would get to a single cell. The most relevant one that we could talk about is called LUCA. It stands for the last universal common ancestor. So when you trace back all living things today, they all trace back to a common ancestor called LUCA. So that would have been a single cell that would be, more basal than any living thing today. So that would be the earliest that we would talk about in evolution.
Okay, so you're aware, of course, that we cannot go back, and you say trace back. How are you scientifically tracing back your ancestry to this LUCA?
So there would be a number of different methodologies. We could talk about genetics, and we could talk about the fossil record. So when we look at the fossil record, right, there is an order to it. And at the very base of this fossil record,
so this is something I ran into the other day when they sort of said, well, you can't see evolution happen. And there's a ton of things in sciences that we can't see them happen. And Beamsy Beamsy's amazing, brought up a really good one, because I said the Earth's going around the sun. No one's ever seen that happen, right? We have to take our calculations of the sun and what we observe about the Earth's movement, and we say, hey, it goes around the sun. But no one's ever stood back and watched it happen. And he had a better one, which was Pluto going around the sun. No one's ever seen that happen. We can barely see Pluto. Like, it is such a dark planet, we can barely make it out. But we know that will go around the sun, and that is science, that it will go around the sun. So they try to say, hey, you've got to observe it in order for it to be science. And the other thing they do is make this conflation between historic science and experimental science is the thing. And that's the answers in Genesis / sort of, what's the other one? Creation Institute that do that.
ICR.
They use those terms. Yeah, ICR. They sort of do that. And it's just everything is kind of historical. So there's nothing that we have. Like, we do experiments, but that's still testing something that happened in the past. Everything's happened in the past. That's why it's the past.
I mean,
and a lot of science is observing the effects, not the event itself. So, like Pluto going around the sun. We observe the effects of Pluto traveling throughout the space. We observe like the calculations we make on other planets. We use a lot of induction to predict where Pluto will travel, but we never actually observe this event occurring. Just like in evolution, we never actually observe, but we can see all of the effects that it produces. So to say,
Well, that's not entirely accurate. We can observe the effects of evolution in real time, like the experiment with the algae and the predator, where they evolved multicellularity. Or one of my favorite go-tos is agriculture. In the last 50 years, the milk output of cows has been increased by 25% by selective breeding, which is evolution.
Amber,
it's a change in
have
the
you
allele
seen
frequencies.
a dog give birth to a non-dog?
I can think of a joking answer to that one, but what pops immediately to mind is the thing I mentioned the other day. According to Mike Lacona, Christian Bible researcher, there's a passage in Josephus. Remember Josephus, the guy who's critical to proving the historicity of Jesus, as they put it.
Resurrection.
Yeah. So Josephus, he records that during the destruction of the Second Temple, someone witnessed a cow giving birth to a lamb. So if you're using Josephus to justify Jesus, you have to accept that evidence as well, and therefore we have observed a thing giving birth to a non-same thing.
Yeah. No, fair enough, but yeah. But all I'm getting at is that we don't need to see the actual event, happen in real time in order to know that it happened. And the other one was an electron. Like, we've never seen an electron. Like, you can't see electrons, but we still know they exist due to the effects that they have. So it's just this whole idea that for some reason evolution just doesn't fit into science while everything else does is really wrong.
Lowest layers, we see nothing but, like I mentioned before, stromatolites. These are fossils of single cell colonies. So the very earliest that we see is just single cells in the fossil record. So there's evidence on that front, and then there's evidence from genetics. What do all living things that are currently alive, what characteristics do they share genetically, morphologically? And that would allow us to reconstruct a hypothetical model for what characteristics Luca may have had.
Okay. Now, you said the fossil record is in some kind of order.
Mm-hmm.
I have pointed out many times there really is no fossil record. There are fossils, but they're not a record. None of them talk. None of them have a date stamped on it. So we have to.
Well, that's just the name for the fossils as they go through the strata of the rocks, as whatever method you think they were laid down in. They have an ordering to these organisms. Like, you will not find birds below a certain level. It just won't happen. Like Grayson says, that there is a point where multicellularity ends and you just get these single cell stromatolites in colonies, and that some of them still exist today, but below a certain level you will not get more complex life form than that. And the question is why. That's the question.
With our interpretation on the fossil, you're digging in the dirt, you find a petrified clam in the closed position. It does not talk. There's no number on it. We don't know how old it is by looking at it. How did they tell the age of fossils?
So there's a number of different methods that they can choose from, but one that I could list is looking if there's any igneous layers above or below it, because you can't necessarily date a fossil using radiometric dating of the fossil itself.
Let me explain for the audience. Igneous means ignited, something that's been burned. Lava is the most simplest one to understand.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean the rock's been burnt. It just means that it was formed from cooling lava or magma, one of the two. That's how it formed. It doesn't. I'm not sure why he's going to the etymology of igneous, in Latin, but he does that a lot.
Yeah, and he got it wrong. Ignis just means fire, unless I'm very much off base.
I'm not sure. Let's look at the etymology of it.
Let's fact check.
Yeah, it just means it's from ignis. It's just fire. Yeah. It doesn't mean burnt. It just means fire. So yeah, you're correct.
Hooray! I get a cookie.
So he makes an etymological fallacy again and gets it wrong. That's a nice one.
He's fractally wrong at this point.
Yeah, it's rock that came from something that was ignited. Igneous.
Yeah. So
it's wrongception.
Yeah, one of the three basic types of rocks, but igneous rocks can be usually radiometrically dated. So if you find a fossil in a certain layer, if you look above it and you see an igneous layer that dates radiometrically to 200 million years, then you know that that layer below it was laid down at some point prior to 200 million years.
You're bracketing it.
Yes, you're giving a range.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Nice one, Grayson. Like, just answer like this. This is like a kid being educated in secondary school science. It really is.
It's pretty fun. Oh,
Yeah.
Assembly of God said a thing that's reminded me of another thing. We can't see electrons with our own eyes, but we can detect them with detectors. That's what we do with particle accelerators.
Yeah, I think Assembly of God is being sort of devil's advocate at the moment. They're just sort of trolling a little bit. So I've kind of been ignoring you. I'm really not interested in doing a devil's advocate debate while I'm streaming. So if you do want to debate, like, contact my email. But I know that you're not. You're just sort of devil's advocating it. Which yeah, but we got electron detectors, and we can see their effects. We understand what their effects are. We can shoot electrons at things, and stuff happens. So we know that
we have the movement charts when the particles collide. We can see all the interesting things. We can see the quarks going off that way, and when we collide photons, it gets really interesting because we have the electron and the positron, and we see them do the little spiral thing before they come back together and annihilate and disappear from the detector. Fucking cool.
Yeah.
Of course, that assumes that the radiometric dating methods are accurate.
Sure. I mean, I think they're generally reliable. We have tested it on things of known dates, like the Mount Vesuvius eruption that destroyed Pompeii. That has been radiometrically dated to within about 10 years. So
wait. So if I took a sample from the lava from Mount Vesuvius to any laboratory and did not tell them where I got it,
yep,
don't tell them a thing.
Yep.
Yeah, I love how Ken just interrupts willy-nilly and Donnie does absolutely nothing to stop him. You know, it's just, come on, dude. Seriously.
Well, I mean, in this case, Donnie's not physically in the room.
Yeah, but he's still the moderator, presumably.
He's moderating remotely? That's interesting.
Well, he's always moderating remotely. I mean, even
yeah, but I mean, like, if your two debaters are in a room together and you're somewhere else, I don't know. That seems like a weird way to moderate.
And why is he there? Why is he even on the screen?
I thought he was just rebroadcasting on his own channel because Kent's channel has, 10 subscribers or whatever.
I don't know, but it's kind of weird. I don't know. I have no idea. I thought this was on Standing for Truth. I have no idea. I just got it off Grayson's channel. I've got no idea where it was broadcast, whether it was on whose channel. I have no idea whatsoever.
How old is this lava? They would get the same number?
Yes, they would get around the same number, yes. And Dalrymple did a study on this, I think, in 1992. And
yeah, look at that smuggling. He smuggles in exactly the same number. Yeah, within a margin of error. Like, let's be serious. Like, don't try and smuggle in that. But Grayson picks up on it. He really does pick up on it. It's so dishonest. Like, seriously, I love how Grayson's handling it. He's not letting it phase him. He's not letting it fluster him. He's just correcting him. It's fantastic.
It was repeated in the early 2000s where they did double blind. They sent the samples out and they all got it back around the same number.
And that was Vesuvius in recorded history.
Yes.
So if it's something that we think is millions of years old, they would also give the same numbers?
Yes.
You think so?
Dalrymple also showed that in his
hundreds of examples where they don't get that.
There are several creationist attempts to do this, but if you look down at the methodology of how they selected these samples, and it was quite misleading. It was very clear that they were setting it up for failure basically in their sampling process. Like, if you do a method incorrectly, you can be sure to expect incorrect results.
But you know that the ones that match your geologic dates were done correctly.
Yeah, so
but they also set it up to give up billions of years age and not be correct.
Well, so there's several methods that scientists do in order to make sure that they're not sampling from a contaminated sample, or they're sampling the right kind of sample that they know can be radiometrically dated. Like you wouldn't date like a marine shell or something. There are certain things like bones, or there are certain things that you won't get an accurate sample for. Like a recent volcanic eruption, nobody would ever date that because we know that there's not enough daughter isotope developed yet to give an accurate dating. So nobody would date Mount St. Helens because you'd be using the method incorrectly if you tried to do so.
Yeah, it's like asking you to measure the distance to the next city with a ruler. It's the wrong tool for what you're using it for. And this always gets me when they sort of say, hey, carbon dating was incorrect. It dated this thing millions of years old to 55,000 years. And it's like, well, yeah, that's the limit of carbon dating. Like, I don't know why you would expect something like, we've seen these sort of papers given out by the creationists before, and their methodology for getting these samples is absolutely terrible. Like, they do not. Grayson's right when it was set up to fail, because they got their samples from places that were contaminated. They got their samples from places that you should not get samples for because the way of it was formed. There was some massive questions around this. And the thing is, some of these experiments that they did, they sent real geologists, or I shouldn't say real, respected geologists to these sites, and they got the same samples when sent off. They got proper samples, uncontaminated, from the right sources, and sent them off to different labs and got the same result, which was accurate, but only accurate within a certain time frame. Like, this is the thing. Like, it's accurate to a given degree of accuracy. But the great thing about geologists is they will include that sort of window in their they will say, hey, it is 10,000 years plus or minus 200 kind of thing, or plus or minus 1,000 years. They will give that window in their calculations because they're honest.
There's lots of other examples of like radiometric dates cross-corroborating with other methods. Like, there's a famous shipwreck from the Bronze Age, the Uluburun shipwreck. They used dendritic dating, which is from tree rings in the logs of the ship, and then they used radiometric dating, and then they also compared what kind of Egyptian scarabs they were finding on the ship, and all three of them converged to the same basic dating range of the early 1300s BC. So that's cross-corroboration against three different methods, one that's even just a historical method.
Sure. So that's something within the last few thousand years. But this also works for billions of years?
Yeah, so there's two things on this. There's something called isochron dating, where you are making absolutely no assumptions about the initial state. They're not required to do an isochron dating test. And when you plot out the isochron, the data points, if they're in a straight line, that shows that there was no contamination. If you don't get a straight line, then you know that there was contamination. So this method, not only you don't have to make any initial starting assumptions, but the method will tell you whether or not your sample was contaminated. So this clears up a lot of the potential unknowns. And there's also samples like zircon dating, which is uranium to lead. And you know that there could not have physically been any lead in that initial sample, because zircon crystals, the actual crystalline structure on a molecular scale, cannot incorporate lead when they form. So
yep, he's been listening to Beamsy. Beamsy took us through all of this. Absolutely. That, like, zircon cannot have lead in it when it forms. It cannot. However, it can be contaminated by lead very easily. Lead contamination is a huge problem. In fact, did you know that lead in our atmosphere was the reason why we have clean rooms?
Damn lead.
Yeah.
Ruins everything.
So a guy called Claire Patterson, and yeah, it was a guy called Claire Patterson. His name just happened to be Claire. Basically, he kept getting lead results from any atmospheric region and couldn't figure out where they came from. He eventually created the clean room to prevent any lead contamination of his samples whatsoever. Like, basically this room that was absolutely as sterile as he could get it. We eventually found out the lead was from petrol, leaded petrol. That's where all the lead contamination comes from. Terrible invention, leaded petrol.
When those initial zircon crystals formed, they could not form with any lead. People have tried to make zircon crystals with lead in the map formation. Nobody has ever shown that it's even possible. So we know there was no lead initially, and we can find lead now that all trace back to around the same 4.65 billion years. It's zircon dating that's giving us those very oldest dates for the age of the Earth.
Okay, we'll leave that for another debate. But now we've got your first.
Yeah. Let's steer away from that one. That's just makes too much sense. Like, Seriously? It's almost like that. Don't bring up more than one topic. How many has he brought up now? Like,
Yeah, but that's
you
his thing. He's jumping from thing to thing.
yeah.
The
And
only
then
time he came
anytime
close to making an argument of his own was when he was bringing up the Earth was a ball of hotness. Hotness,
Yeah.
yes. That's the scientific term, folks.
But he was the one that brought up, how do we know it's that old? And it's like, well, that's that thing for another debate. I'm not getting it. Yeah, it's kind of you've just been pinned on something that's absolutely true. What is it? Is it I'm losing my mind. What decays into lead in that case? It's
Oh shit! I've got the decay chain around here somewhere, but I'd have to dig to find it.
It's not. It's is it polonium lead? No, lead goes into polonium. I am having a mental blank. Why is my brain shutting down? This is what happens when you listen to too much Kent. Your brain just shuts down.
It's true. Yeah, polonium can turn. Yeah, it's polonium to lead to bismuth to polonium to lead.
Yeah. But the thing is, we know the difference between polonium. Is it uranium lead?
Uranium and thorium will both eventually decay into
Thorium,
lead.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't sound right to me. Dating methods. Yeah, uranium lead. It is uranium lead. Okay. Yeah. And the other one we use, that's the other one we use, potassium argon. And the thing is, argon won't be in these crystalline structures because it's a gas. It just escapes. Like we cannot have had that in it when it forms. So, yeah.
Life form in this warm little pond, a single cell creature. Were there like trillions of these, quadrillions of them all over the world, or was it just, did we all start from one?
It would be a population of Luca, yeah.
Okay. And how did they learn to reproduce themselves? I mean, even single cell reproduction is a really complex process.
Yeah.
The DNA is more complex than all the computer codes ever written by man combined.
Mm-hmm.
So this first single cell had that DNA code already in it?
So I wanted to be clear to differentiate between Luca and the first life, like in abiogenesis, okay. Right? Luca is not necessarily the first cell. It's just the last universal common ancestor to everything alive.
The first cell then.
So I'll answer with the first cell, right? So when we started, even before we had that cell, before we had protocells, we had a self-replicating chemical system. So the fact that it could replicate itself, that's like the very first thing that needs to be checked for the development of life.
Explain how did that come about? Do chemicals today replicate themselves just and make exact copies? So anything similar to the code they see of the DNA?
I mean, yeah. So this is
before DNA. You're not listening, Kent. This is before DNA. Like there's alternate hypotheses. There's RNA world. There's the amyloid world, which is what Grayson will probably talk about because he's really familiar with that. But that's it's not something that he's talking about with DNA. It doesn't need DNA. He's just talking about self-replication. That's all. If there's self-replication and selection, that's all it needs. That's all it needs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, DNA is in itself an advanced adaptation because it's more stable than RNA. So you could say, to put it colloquially, that RNA invented DNA to be a database because RNA, in a way, it's sort of like our short-term memory. You can work with it, but it's not super reliable. DNA, because it's more stable, can keep your code intact when errors in your code can be a major problem.
And Titan's got a good point. Chemicals do replicate their structures. Can't crystals replicate their structures given the right chemicals? They can replicate.
Oh yeah, I mean, hell, take a snowflake. Begin with a snowflake and add, I guess, water vapor to it. It will continue to expand, but it'll replicate the existing pattern. It'll just they're fractals basically. So what's there will be the same as what's there later, just bigger.
Getting to what I said amyloid world.
Well, crystals don't have metabolisms, but I don't think these primitive self-replicating chemicals have either, what Grayson's talking about. I don't think they have metabolisms either. Tat?
I guess it depends on how you look at it, because from the one perspective, the replication process, it does require energy, but in the same way, crystals require energy to form bonds between materials, so you no longer have like loose atoms hanging around. They've moved into a crystalline structure. It's not metabolism, but it's not metabolism in exactly the same way.
Yeah, assembly of God, I think, you know, yeah, not in a laboratory. We can't fuse anything heavier than iron. Kind of in a laboratory, but that doesn't mean it doesn't
no,
happen
that's
in
not
nature.
true. The
Well,
trans uranium elements have all been they don't get named until we can create them. Even if they're so unstable they only last for a fraction of a second. We can make them. They're just not stable. It's nothing fuses in a star beyond iron. You need a supernova to get the really heavy stuff.
Right. But you can fuse heavier than iron naturally in a supernova.
Mm-hmm.
Was my favorite of the little hypotheses, and I don't want to say that this is actually absolutely how it happened, but amyloids are a type of protein that they grow by adding amino acids onto they're kind of like a pleated sheet kind of and they continue to grow along the edges by adding more amino acids.
Adding them by chemical attraction, by what causes them to add this?
So there are chemical catalysts, like a certain type of volcanic gas can catalyze this reaction that will add more amino acids and continue to grow this amyloid sheet. And the way that they're added is that it replicates the order of the amino acids. So as it's going, that information is being replicated, not perfectly. And once it gets to a certain length, it will break. And then you'll have two versions that continue to elongate. And so you have this self-replicating behavior in amyloids that even have a certain amount of sequence information that is replicated in a sort of very primitive form of inheritance. And it's all before and without any DNA involved. So we know that there are certain chemical systems which do have the capacity to replicate themselves, have some level of inheritability, and can meet the characteristics necessary for Darwinian evolution, all even without the complex machinery of a cell.
That's beautiful. And this is Amyloid World. This is a video. He goes through it on Grayson's channel. The channel's linked up the top. Give him a subscribe, and this Grayson's going to be kicking ass because he has been going so well. But I really recommend his Amyloid World video. It explains it really well. Now, keep in mind, this is just a hypothesis. We don't know this for sure. But Kent's trying to say this couldn't possibly have happened, like use the argument from incredulity. Oh, this couldn't possibly have happened natural. And Grayson's just explained away that, yes, it could. This is plausible that it could happen naturally. We don't know that it happened this way. We don't know that for sure. But here is a plausible naturalistic explanation for these chemicals starting their replication process. That's all we need. Because if you're hinging your argument on couldn't have happened naturally, if you can show a natural way that it could have happened, your argument's dead. It's dead in the water. You've then got to show that it can't have happened that way. And that's a hard task.
Well, I mean, even that, really, he doesn't have to show that. He just has to show his God. But even if he did show that still wouldn't prove his God, just that idea is incorrect.
Yeah, correct. But that's where they don't have any evidence for the God. They only try to knock down evolution, knock down stellar formation, knock down all of these scientific theories and hypotheses that we have. Hypotheses. That's where they try to knock down the other person's argument, but they never actually produce anything for the God. And that's my major bone of contention. He will not support his God hypothesis with anything, even any kind of argument or philosophical stance or anything like it. It's always here's why you're wrong. No, you've got to show why you're right, not why the other guy is right. I mean, I don't have a huge problem with it. It just sort of gets annoying that you're sort of saying, hey, it can't have happened. And then when you say, hey, here's a plausible way it could help, he goes, no, it can't because my God, but won't actually support that God hypothesis.
Yeah, that's one of the main reasons why I really don't debate creationists on creation, because the debate is never actually on creation. Like,
Correct,
I'd
yeah.
be tempted to let them make their opening and say evolution is wrong, Big Bang is wrong, etc., etc., etc. And then I would just go, for the sake of argument, I'm going to concede every single one of your points. Now please demonstrate your God, because you're no closer to doing that by knocking down all of science.
Well, that's why I think a creation versus evolution is a lot fairer, because it's not just one side sort of defending the science. You also have to defend your own worldview. But very, very few creationists will actually defend their own worldview. They'll just try and attack what scientists have found out by using the very science that the scientists have found out. Like, it's not even like they're using their worldview to say, hey, you're wrong because my worldview is right. They're saying, hey, I'm going to take your science and try to show you why your science is wrong using the very thing that these people have produced, which is just horrendous. Because, you know, it's like somebody comes up with an idea of how, you know, this thing works, like how weather systems work, and you're just basically saying, hey, it's a, you know, I believe personally that it's a luminous aether that is doing the weather, but here's why your weather system's wrong, because you don't understand everything about how tornadoes form. You know, they're unpredictable. You don't know everything about them, so it can't be right. It must be the luminiferous aether that does it. It's kind of a god of the gaps, or a luminiferous aether of the gaps. So that's what gets me. And I think a lot more there should be debates of creationism versus evolution. You know, which one is right? Present some actual evidence for your side, not just because just say intelligent design is right. And I've said this before. Just say it's right, okay? It doesn't prove a god. It could be aliens that did it. Aliens could have designed the genome. Magic,
or any number of other things. Yeah.
Right. It doesn't prove, but the reason why I use aliens is because that would still be a naturalistic explanation. I see no reason to believe that. Just before chat eviscerates me, I see no reason to in any way believe that. There's no evidence to show that, so I don't believe it. But even if intelligent design was proved right, it gets you no closer to proving a god. It's just your belief. Yeah. Yeah, I kind of think this is a good place to leave it. I'm kind of tired a bit, Ember. I find that do you want to continue this next week, or do you want to skip a week and come back to it?
Could go either way. I mean, we are covering a lot of interesting topics. They're not.
Yeah, they're really.
We're not making a lot of progress on Kent proving his points, but you know.
Yeah, but it has been 3 hours and we've gotten through half an hour of the video, so we're not going especially fast.
Yeah. We can resume next week. I don't have anything particular planned,
Okay.
so yeah.
Okay, beautiful. So next week will be part 2. Come and join us over on Ember's channel, and I should get Ember's channel. It is in the description, I think, unless I forgot to put it in the description. If so, I'm so sorry, Ember. As I said, I'm always organized, always on the ball. There's never a time that's
Naturally.
I'm not on the ball. Yeah. This one, I mean,
we live on a globe. You're always on the ball.
Oh, beheaded kamikaze, thank you so much for reminding me. I so would have forgotten. Okay, so there is the poll. Would you like me to debate Hovind again? And the answer is no. It's actually a lot closer than I thought it would be, to be honest with you. But no, I get you. I get you. You know, I see where both sides are coming from, quite frankly. This is at 28:13. We've got through so little, Ember. What are we doing? What are we doing? We got through so
Tangents.
little.
Tangents are what we do here.
Damn it. Oh, I can make a thing here. Ban the tangents. Ban the tangents. Oh well, sus tangents indeed. So what did you think so far? What are your impressions so far?
Well, I mean, Kent is always Kent, although he's a lot less insulting in person so far anyway.
Right?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's because he doesn't have a mute button, but you know, who's to say? Maybe maybe his visit with Grayson just put him in an extra good mood or something like that. I don't really know.
Well,
But
I
do see
yeah, sorry,
Grayson is really, really grown as a communicator. I mean, he is
right.
He started, probably around about a year ago, I think. And, you know, he's always known his shit pretty well, but his ability to communicate it both clearly and quickly has remarkably improved. And, you know, I see him going places, as it were.
Yeah, same here. I really think it's like Grayson's kicked it into gear. I mean, Grayson, he always, having known him since I probably, you know, as he started kind of thing. I think I was at his channel when there was, you know, 30 subscribers and a dog there. You know, but he always had a vast array of knowledge and scientific knowledge, and was really interested in biology and genetics and all of these different stuff. You know, stellar formation, physics. Like, he's always had that knowledge. I think his debate style has really ramped it up into fifth gear. Like, he really, the way that he tackled Kent was just you know, cool, calm, and collected. He didn't bite at anything. I would say that, you know, I think I wouldn't go so far as to say that Kent was less insulting, because I don't think I mean, sometimes, yeah, he is insulting, but I think he was less condescending. And maybe, to my mind, that had something to do with meeting Grayson, having dinner with him. You know, it's really hard to be horribly condescending to someone you've met and someone that you actually like. You know, there's somebody that you sort of have gotten along with, had dinner with, talked about other stuff than what you disagree on, you know, come to an agreement and had some empathy with. So I maybe think that he met Grayson, and Grayson is a really likable guy. So maybe that's it. But yeah, Clive, Grayson debate Darth Dawkins. No, I don't make Grayson debate Darth Dawkins. That's horrible.
Cruel and inhumane.
Yeah, unnecessary, cruel and inhuman,
unproductive punishment. Too.
It is and it isn't, because I mean, Darth kind of digs his own grave. So it kind of, he always comes off looking horrible, because he's just really mean, really insulting, really condescending. So there's almost a victory in his arrogance and sort of talking down to people. But it is rough to go through, because he's just so you know, completely and utterly arrogant and condescending and insulting and horrible to you. It's really a bad time. It's not a great time. I'll say that. So yeah, but yeah, good one, Grayson. I really loved. I loved his yeah. And I don't think he's even using notes. That's the thing that's getting me. He's not even noting stuff down. I need notes to be able to refer to. He's doing fine without them. It's fantastic.
Yeah, that is another thing to keep in mind. Like all of the knowledge he's dumping is right off the top of his head. He's got it all in his brain in the jar. Yeah,
amazing. And Grayson's pinned up the top. Don't forget to go over to Ember's channel and subscribe to Ember if you're not already there. You probably all are, because Ember's amazing. But, you know, get your alt accounts, get your Smurfs, and subscribe again, because another person that's going places is our Ember. Absolutely. I enjoyed this debate. I'll enjoy the next half. Absolutely. I really will. But don't forget, as I always say. Oh, hang on, I got a banner to put up too.
Banner.
I want to
subscribe,
thank,
like, multiply, share. Use the share. Everybody forgets about the share.
I totally forget. Look, I always forget something, and I can send you places. I can send you onwards. Onwards,
the
atheist
redirect.
soldiers. The redirect, which I always forget about, and of course nobody is up and running, because why would they be? Does anyone know who's running at the moment?
I haven't been looking. I've been preoccupied.
Oz is doing some DJing. I mean, I might as well send you over there. Late night DJ, if you want to party. Oz has got you covered. Oz has been doing a lot of more DJing than debating and talking theology and stuff lately. I think he really loves doing it, so he's sort of prioritizing
He really does,
it.
yeah.
Oh yeah, he has a
And
blast.
you gotta do what
he
you
does
love.
it. So yeah, absolutely. No, I'm totally on board with that. So I will send you over there when I work out what it is that I'm doing. Oh, actually, yeah, hooligans playing games and watching videos. All right. That's actually, sorry, I vetoed you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a scheduled one. No, I can't do that.
I mean, you could, but people would be waiting around a minute.
Hang on. Yeah, wait. 21st of January, 12:27. Oh, he's live at the moment. Okay. Well, I mean, I'll send you over there. That's fine. Okay. And I want to thank everybody that sent in super chats, did memberships. Robin is the most, like, it should be Robin the Sniper, I swear, because John needed a membership for his birthday, and Robin took out one membership and hit him in a crowd of 50 people. It's ridiculous. Like, seriously, that kind of aim
11
is I don't call
17.
miracle much, but that's a miracle. It just is.
You got
thanks, Mark.
23 more members on just this stream. Perhaps another emojis in the future?
Believe that. Yeah, I've got to do more emojis. I think I want a rage emoji, like one to express anger, because we can get angry and then use the rage emoji. I don't know. I'm doing my best. I'm doing things as they occur to me, and I'm doing my best. And I'm trying to be kind to myself and not worrying too much about pressure and sort of, I think I've got some cool emojis. I love my emojis. I really do. But yeah, I do have to do more. So get prepared for that. Buckle up, buckaroos. That's going to come.
Love emojis.
More emojis. Oh, people love the band hammer. I got to say that. I think that's still their favorite Hovind induced rage. Yeah, no, I get you, man. I get you. Absolutely. Anyway, don't forget, as always, be kind to yourself. Be gentle with yourself. Be kind to others, and do take care. Yeah, lots of love, everybody. Take care, and all the best.
Night, folks.